Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure not only to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but throughout the world, but also to welcome to our program this evening 4 diverse and diverting personalities who are going to pit their wits, their verbal ingenuity, their creative intelligence against each other as they try and speak for just a minute on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. And we welcome back, after a long absence from the show, that formidable player of the game, Wendy Richard. We welcome back also another forceful player of the game, that is Sue Perkins. And we welcome 2 exciting comic performers. We have that original humorist, Ross Noble, and the other equally talented humorist, Tony Hawks. Would you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me is Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow her whistle when 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the beautiful, refurbished King's Theatre in the South Sea area of that great city of Portsmouth. And as you've just realized, we have an enthusiastic Hampshire audience in front of us to cheer us on our way and encourage us as we start the show with Tony Hawks. Tony, the subject is the Wild West. Tell us something about the Wild West in just a minute, starting now.
This town ain't big enough for the both of us. Might be the kind of thing you would have heard in the Wild West. But as the founding fathers set off on the Mayflower, planning a life in the New World, they would have hoped it might have been rather passive. But as they headed further west, came wilder and more wild as they...
Sue Perkins, you challenge.
Stumbling, hesitational. When he crossed the territories, there was hesitation. So I'm saying he got tired of crossing.
I think he was trying to get away from... Hated in that process. So, Sue, you have a correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. You take over the subject, the Wild West, and there are 37 seconds available starting now.
Before the Wild West came the Tame West, and before then came the very timid West.
And Tony Hawk's a challenge.
Repetition of before.
Before then.
God damn it, you're right.
Kinky.
Tony, you got the subject back. A point for a correct challenge and 33 seconds available. The Wild West starting now.
If you've ever been to Bristol on a Friday night, you'll know what the Wild West is like. They come flocking out of the pubs full of beer and whatever they've managed to get inside those establishments, and they throw themselves about the place. But not just in that particular West Country town, but it can happen in others. True.
Ross Noble, you challenge. And so, within the rules of just a minute, what do you think your challenge is?
It was kind of a hesitation.
Yes, a stumble on language, and so we call it hesitation. All right, Ross, 15 seconds available, and you start now.
The Wild West was a place where cowboys lived, and it was also a place where Indians lived.
And Wendy...
2 places, I think.
Yes, that's right.
I'm just rubbish.
Mind you, we were all going to learn a lot about the Wild West if you carried on, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But because you don't play the game as all that frequently, you easily slip up. And Wendy, you've got in on the Wild West, so we're hearing from everybody on the first round. That's good. 11 seconds available, Wendy, starting now.
Apart from football, if there's one thing I cannot stand, is movies about the Wild West. All those butch cowboys running around in their leather chaps, chasing...
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On that occasion, it was Wendy Richard. So at the end of the round, they all have a point, and Wendy has 2. Wendy, take the next round. Very apt for Portsmouth. The Navy. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
The Navy, the senior service of this country. They're all absolutely marvellous. And when you see them in their uniforms, especially the ones that have the scrambled egg on the shoulders, I think they are so smart. No wonder many a young girl's head is turned by these handsome men you see in the correct...
I think the image got you carried away.
It did indeed.
You just hesitated there. So, Sue, you were in first, right?
I was enjoying the reverie, though. I saw it in my head, and I was going with it. Yeah, there was a bit of hesitation.
So you were the first to challenge, and you've got in on the Navy. Another point to you, of course. 39 seconds available, starting now.
In the Navy, that famous song done by the famous combo, the Village People. Not again!
You've done it again.
Why?
You've done it again.
Welcome
Tony,
to
your
my-
challenge. Must
Yes, repetition of famous.
The famous, yes, well done. 35 seconds, starting now.
I actually come from a naval family because my father was in the merchant navy, a captain indeed, and he used to regale us over the evenings with many a story of how he would come to Portsmouth and enjoy the joys of evening life there. My mother wasn't too keen on some of these, but we did not go into that. The Navy, of course, is much nicer now than it would have been, say, 400...
Sue, who challenged?
Well, just because I felt I ought to, because it's twice now he's challenged me, and there was a tiny window, a tiny moment where the brain wasn't moving on. It might have been hesitation, and please give it to me.
Well, Sue, I do have to be fair within the rules of just a minute, and as much as you're pleading, actually...
It's pathetic, isn't it?
No, it isn't. It's delightful because the audience laugh, and that's what it's all about. Tony, an incorrect challenge, so you get a point for that, and you have 9 seconds to continue on the Navy, starting now.
I very much enjoyed that famous song, In the Navy.
Ross challenged.
Did you not say that his mother enjoyed listening to
That's right.
I think that was repetition.
That's
yeah?
right, yes. He actually said enjoyed the joys, but that was legitimate. But he did repeat the word enjoy. So, well listened, Ross. You have the subject, you have the Navy. You have 6 seconds starting now.
Navy blue is one of my favourite colours. It's much better than Army cerise or the other particular... It's the Air Force, isn't it? That's the other one. Army, Navy, Air Force.
Wendy, you got in there first. Army cerise. I think it's a lovely idea. Wendy, you were in first, and you had... Oh, clever girl. Only half a second to talk on the Navy, starting now.
The Navy.
So, Wendy Richards speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, and once again she's moved forward. She's actually just one ahead of Tony Hawks, and then Sue Perkins and Ross Noble equal, very close. And Sue, your turn to begin. The subject, coffee shops. 60 seconds starting now.
Often in the night, I wake in a sweat, wondering to myself, why are there not more coffee shops in the United Kingdom? There seemed to be a huge vacuum in the 3 shops in my local high street. Starbucks, Costa Coffee to name but 2, which means you can go just 3 or 4 steps and find yourself with a cappuccino or a frappuccino or a mochaccino or a decaf filter deluxe.
Tony, you challenged.
There were about 3 or 4 auras there.
There were 3 or 4 auras, yes.
Normally, we let a couple go, but when there are 4 in a row, we step in.
It's all very well you being partisan, but these are the rules of just a minute.
That's the tradition.
So, Tony, a correct challenge. 40 seconds available. You tell us something about coffee shops, starting now.
I always order a cup of tea when I go into a coffee shop because I am something of a rebel figure and I like to beat the system. But like Sue, I have noticed how many coffee shops there are in this country now, and it is disturbing. Although I was reading in a newspaper article not long ago that they are losing money, quite a lot of them, and that's pleasing, isn't it? Anyway, I once ordered myself, that's possibly something...
Yes, Wendy, you challenged.
2 orders.
Definitely,
You ordered too much.
Yes.
And that is repetition within the rules of just a minute. So, Wendy, a correct challenge, up another point and 14 seconds available. Coffee shops starting now.
There are far too many coffee shops about. As a tea drinker, I think there ought to be more parlours for this other beverage and less of the coffee shops. And the prices they charge. Over £1 for a cafe latte.
So once again, Wendy Richard was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so. With others in the round, she's moved forward. So you can see if you get in just before the end and keep going, you increase your lead more rapidly. So, Ross, it's your turn to begin. Ross Noble. Oh, the subject, diets. 60 seconds starting now.
A lot of people say that crash diets simply don't work. Well, this is nonsense. If you drive a small car into a wall, you'll find that when they wire your jaw up, you'll be unable to take in any food. You have to be pretty much a determined porker in order to get that stuff through the jaws area, maybe with a small syringe or pipette device. Soup is the best because it is mixed up. The solids tend to smack against the grilling. The Weight Watchers is also an excellent way of going about losing weight. Simply get a sniper to watch from a distance, and then every time you attempt to put a large piece of cake or chocolate into your mouth, the laser sighting will go down onto the sticky confectionery-type substance and blow it clean out of the palm of your hand. Then, once the fingers have been removed, you will also find it very difficult to pick things out of it.
I'm withdrawing.
Damn you,
I was trigger happy. I'm withdrawing.
No, to tell you, the audience round of applause showed how much they appreciate it.
Yes, I'm withdrawing my objection immediately.
I've got to tell you, which won't endear Sue to this audience, you went for 57 seconds.
No, I'm taking it back!
And you not only... This is the agony of this show. He doesn't get any points for that. With a point for a correct challenge and 3 seconds on diet starting now.
Ross, you can buzz me. Buzz me, Ross.
He has buzzed you.
I already had.
You already had. What's your challenge?
What's my challenge? Spite. Pure spite.
You could have actually had it for repetition of buzz.
Yes, buzz, that was it.
Sue, you got your point when you did a challenge and you got in and for a second there. And Ross has got it back again. You've got 2 seconds on diets, Ross, starting now.
Diet.
Wendy's challenge.
There was a bit of a hesitation.
There was no hesitation. Well tried. You almost got in on the end of each subject, but not quite, Wendy. Another point to Ross. Half a second to go. Diets, Ross, starting now.
Diets, as I said.
So Ross Noble was speaking as a whistle went and gained that extra point, and he deserved points in that round, which he got, and including the one for speaking as a whistle went. So he's now equal with Wendy Richard in the lead, but they're only 2 points ahead of our equal seconds, Sue Perkins and Tony Hawkes. And Tony, your turn to begin. And what a delightful subject. The World Service. Tell us something about the World Service in just a minute, starting now.
A friend of mine, John Sweeney, a journalist for The Observer, was driving through northern Iraq when the radio came on and he heard the dulcet tones of Nicholas Parsons saying, "Welcome to Just a Minute. Is there nowhere in the world where you are safe from this man?" He was reporting on the Kurdish troubles and felt that this would not happen to him, and yet he was plummeted into depression by the sound of our esteemed chairman's voice. Fortunately, I was speaking next, so he cheered up a bit. The World Service, not many people know this, is actually funded by the Foreign Office and not from the licence fee of the British Broadcasting Corporation, which a lot of people would have expected to be the case. But no, it isn't. I'm telling you now, so listen carefully and write...
Noble challenge.
Repetition of isn't.
Isn't
funded by the BBC.
Right.
Isn't.
Well, listen, Jimmy, no.
Now I know what it feels like to be Sue.
They're obviously taking sides already. Wait a minute. So, correct challenge, Ross. You have another point, of course. 13 seconds available. The World Service starting now.
I really like the idea of African tribesmen getting a small transistor radio and being able to listen to this show, and that is the only way that they can learn English. How fun it would be to move into the village to hear them say, "It is nice to greet you."
Ross Noble was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point for doing so. He's moved ahead in the lead. And Wendy's turn to begin. The subject, Wendy, launderettes. I wonder why they thought of launderettes for Wendy Richard. Anyway, Wendy, talk on the subject in just a minute, starting now.
My local launderette does not have a charming, friendly person like Pauline to help you with your service washes. Oh, no, we have a chap called Jeff.
Ross Noble challenge.
I'm going to go for deviation because you were very, very nasty to Peggy, and that's not charming. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
I've never been nasty to Peggy in the laundrette. She had the cheek the other week to come in and complain.
Leave it out, you're bang out of order.
Complain about the prices of a service wash in my laundrette.
Right. I should explain to all our listeners on the World Service that at this present moment, Wendy Richard is referring to Pauline, the character she plays in EastEnders.
Yes.
EastEnders goes abroad, Nicholas. A lot of people. I get fan mail from all over the world, don't worry.
Well, the Kurdish tribes don't get it.
Yes.
But
And it doesn't go to China.
Give it time. Give it time.
Yes. So, Wendy, you weren't deviating within the rules of just a minute, so you keep the subject. Another point, of course, and you have 50 seconds still to talk about laundrettes starting now.
On one occasion, when my own personal washing machine at home broke down, I had to go into the local launderette. Not one person came to my assistance. I didn't know how to work the machine in there, and I could feel these women...
Ross challenged.
Was that repetition of machine?
It was,
I
I'm
think
afraid,
it might
yes.
have been. Sorry, Ross.
No, don't apologise to him, Wendy, because he's happy. He gets the subject, if he wants the subject. But anyway, 33 seconds available, Ross. Laundrettes starting now.
There's a laundrette just up the road from here which has got one of the most amazing services I've ever seen. Not only can you wash your clothes, but there is a pool table right next door to the equipment. They sell... Oh, they don't.
Tony Hawks, you challenged for.
I think there was a hesitation.
There was
Yeah,
a
there was.
hesitation.
And
so-
the reason I hesitated was I thought, how many people on the World Service are going to know about the local laundries?
Tony, you have launderettes, and you have 19 seconds starting now.
In America, I understand that they have singles launderettes where they've worked out this is a good place to meet people. But the sight of somebody's spoiled underwear going round and round, you know...
Sue challenged.
Repetition of round.
Yes. And I
Round.
said spoiled instead of soiled.
I know. I noticed that. Nobody picked you up.
What's
for
the
it.
difference?
You're obviously using the wrong washing powder, Tony.
And I suppose it depends how soiled they are. If they're so soiled, they become
Nicholas,
spoiled.
let's go down that
Spoiled underwear is underwear you take out to dinner, always let it underwear away. Give it everything it wants.
Right. So, Sue, you were the first to challenge, correct? And 8 seconds on launderettes starting now.
I'm a big fan of Tony's idea of the singles launderette, where one turns up late at night to meet a significant other, whilst the tumble dryer goes round and about, and...
So, Sue Perkins was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point. The situation now is very close. Ross Noble's just in the lead, followed by Wendy Richard, one ahead of Sue Perkins, one ahead of Tony Hawks in that order. Sue, it's your turn to begin. The subject is the content of my pockets. I don't know whether you have any pockets. But tell us something about that subject in this game starting now.
For those listening on the World Service, I'm not actually wearing trousers. Instead, I've opted in this rather hot environment for a thin camisole, some fishnets, and some unfeasibly high kitten mules. I don't wear spectacles. In fact, the long tresses of my blonde hair flow down my enormous curvaceous figure. 36, 24, don't
Tony,
interrupt me, I'm
Tony
plucking.
challenged.
I'm enjoying the moment.
You've challenged.
Deviation?
I was just explaining I don't have pockets.
Yes, it was good fun within just a minute, wasn't it? The deviation is because her description was contrary to what part of...
How dare you?
The blonde tresses do not coincide with that delightful dark black hair that you have.
As opposed to my light black hair.
black hair. How can you have light black?
I was going to
You
say...
do have light black hair.
Black is black.
hair,
Yes,
do
you can have light black or dark black. I mean, the Highland people of Scotland have very jet black hair, and it's referred to as jet black. That's very dark. You can have a less dark.
Got jet
I've
black
got
hair.
light
She's
black.
got brown hair. His hair's nearer black.
She's got brown hair. The man there, he's got white hair.
There will now be a short interval.
There's no point escape. And they're fighting, but Ross Noble has jet black hair for our listeners who want to have a visual image of the people
Yeah,
saying
but
us.
mine's
And
actually brown hair dyed. So in many ways,
I
I've
didn't
got
want to
light
bring.
black
I didn't
hair.
want to bring your personal secrets into this, but Sue's is utterly natural, and it's a light black. Or a dark brown, I don't mind. Doesn't really matter within just a minute. So who challenged?
I did about an hour and a half.
I was trying to get to a point, but, you know.
Deviation, yes. The description was not accurate. 42 seconds for you, Tony, on the content of my pockets, starting now.
The content of my pockets depends on how I'm going to spend the day. And today I was coming to Portsmouth, so naturally I filled it full.
We had 2 days, didn't we?
Well, she said today, and then
well,
he said
I wasn't
day.
sure. Is 2 day one word or two
No, it's a
words?
hyphenated word, but it's become, I think
Today
it's
is
become
one word. There's no hyphen in it. I'll spell it for
there
you.
used to
In
be...
that case, I beg your pardon.
In my youth, it was hyphenated, and probably, I don't know...
Well, we can't go back that far.
So now it is joined up, and today and day are different words, Wendy, so well tried, no criticism.
It's very
implied.
hard to hyphenate something on a stone tablet as well, isn't it?
That got the indifferent response it deserved. Tony, an incorrect challenge, 33 seconds available. The content of my pocket starting now.
I tend to carry hair dye, depending on whether I want dark black or jet hair. And this occasion...
Ross challenge. Yes.
What?
No, he didn't get to the word hair, actually.
He did.
Did he?
Depending on what hair...
Oh, right, yes, right. Well, listen, Wendy, well, listen, yes. 25 seconds, the content of my pockets starting now.
I have very little in my pockets because otherwise I find that you just fill them all up with rubbish. Sort of cigarette packets, lighters, rolled up Kleenex, dog biscuits, depending if one is going to take one's favourite pet for a walk. It all depends also on what...
Tony challenge.
Repetition of depend.
Depends.
And struggling like mad, Tony. I thought you'd never press that buzzer.
Right, a tough subject then. Tony, correct challenge. Another point. The content of my pockets, 6 seconds starting now.
Full of money because I'm coming to Portsmouth and I want to go to the Launderette where they have...
Ross challenge.
I think he said full before.
Yes, he did say that before, of all kinds of things. Right at the beginning when you started, Tony. Well, listen. Oh, there's a buzz going round the audience. Oh, they're getting aggressive. Right. So 3 seconds are available for you, Ross, on the content of my pockets, starting now.
I have fluff in my pockets. That's right. Alan Freeman.
So Ross Noble is pushing further ahead. Another point for speakers. The whistle went. He's slightly increased his lead over Wendy, Richard and Tony Hawkes, equal in second place, followed closely by Sue Perkins. So it's still quite a close contest as we move in to the final round. And, Tony, your turn to begin. The subject, toffee. Tell us something about toffee in just a minute, starting now.
I'm not exactly sure how you make toffee, but I imagine if you took some butter, water, and something else...
Ross challenge.
Yeah, well, he just doesn't know, does he? and not only that, you can't just imagine it. You can't... I'm no cook, but you can't sit there and go, oh, imagine that. Oh, I've got toffee.
In just a minute, if a subject is suddenly thrown at you, whether you know about it or not, you have to try and continue to speak on it. And he can admit his ignorance on the subject and still keep going. So within that context, he wasn't actually deviating.
Okay, but in the context that I want, he was.
Yes.
We enjoyed the interruption, but it wasn't a correct one. Tony, another point to you. 51 seconds, toffee starting now.
I wonder if any of this lovely audience here in Portsmouth have done what I once did, biting into a toffee, expecting it to be soft, only to find it was very hard indeed. My teeth hurt quite a lot after that incident. I'm going to work that into a magnificent anecdote.
Ross, your challenge.
He was already starting to hesitate, deviate all at once.
So what do you want for your challenge?
You're predicting.
Yeah,
You're like
sorry.
just a minute soothsayer.
We can't have psychic challenges,
Okay,
you know.
sorry.
I think that Ross has got something... just because he knows how to make toffee, he wants to get in.
So what, give me...
Sorry,
give me
no,
one,
I thought it was a bit of hesitation.
There was a bit of hesitation, so the benefit of the doubt goes to Ross on this one. He has 33 seconds on toffee, starting now.
I am an expert on making toffee. My father was a master toffee maker, and as a child he taught me the ways of that particular profession. He gave me a tiny toffee hammer, and I felt like Thor, the Norse god, but not quite as powerful because it was much more confectionery-based, which was a little bit sad, it has to be said. If you take condensed milk and leave it on top of...
Tony challenged.
He's going to give the wrong recipe.
So what is your actual challenge?
Frustration.
The thing is that he could give the wrong recipe.
Well, then it'll be deviation, because he's not talking
I
about...
didn't give the wrong recipe
You
yet,
were going to give the recipe for fudge.
He was giving the recipe for some sort of Norse gods playing with sort of enormous
The
hammers.
thing
and
is, he could
butter.
give the wrong recipe. Like Tony can talk on it and not knowing about it. He can give the wrong recipe, but still talk on the subject of toffee. And you can say at the end that was...
He's talking about making fudge. As soon as he said condensed milk, you knew.
All right, you didn't... I know. Listen, I try to be fair. I try to show the wisdom of Solomon here.
I
and
know
it
how
doesn't
to
work.
make toffee.
So do I. No one's ever asked me.
But you didn't challenge correctly to get
Wendy,
it.
you and I, let's go for a drink after the show. You tell me how to do it, because I'm not having his recipe.
I'm just...
Can I just say, you haven't even mentioned the thermometer that is absolutely essential when making toffee.
I'm going to give you a bit of wisdom on the toffee making.
But,
You might not have heard it.
but you haven't got the subject. Because last time I did give the benefit of the doubt to you,
That's
Ross.
just as well,
and
to
the
be honest
audience
with you.
weren't... 9 seconds, Tony, on toffee, starting now.
I don't think Ross's dad was a master cook.
Oh, wait a minute, Ross challenge.
Deviation he was.
How do we know? I never knew your dad. That, occasionally, I do have an impossible decision. So, because I don't know whether his dad was a toffee
But Nicholas,
expert.
I said I don't think his dad was so it really is irrelevant whether he was or not. Really.
That's very true. Yeah.
And his dad wasn't a master toffee maker.
You take that back.
I withdraw that. That was underhand and unfair. I'm sorry.
But you've got another point.
Yes.
And you have 7 seconds on toffee, starting now.
My mother was a mistress toffee maker, and she used to many times in the outer heaven.
Oh, Sue, you challenge just before the
Just
whistle.
hesitation.
No, there wasn't actually.
It was hesitation.
It was. Thank you, Wendy.
As well.
There was a stump. You can R and U, but I'm last, and I've got to do whatever it takes right now. I'm working with nothing here.
Sue, you've got the audience on your side, and now you are going to have the benefit of the doubt. And so you have 1 second on toffee, starting now.
Surrounded as I am by...
So, Sue Perkins speaking as the whistle went, gain that extra point. And the final situation is that Sue Perkins, who hasn't been with us for quite a while, but came back with a flourish and a charm and in a different appearance.
And I'm in last place, Nicholas. And there's no nice way to put that, but I do appreciate the time and trouble you're taking to do so.
Oh, I don't think you must feel like that, Sue, because you're only just 1 point behind Wendy Richard, who was in 3rd place, and she was only 2 points behind Tony Hawkes, who was in 2nd place, but 3 or 4 points ahead of them was Ross Noble. So we say, Ross, this week, you are our winner. It only remains me to say thank you to our 4 fine and exciting and delightful players of the game, Tony Hawkes, Wendy Richard, Sue Perkins and Ross Noble. And I thank Janet Staplehurst for helping with the score, blowing her whistle so well. We thank our producer-director, which is Claire Jones. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this game, which we enjoy playing. And we are very grateful to our lovely audience here in the King's Theatre in Southsea, who have encouraged us in our antics so magnificently. From our audience here in Southsea, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and our panel, goodbye. Tune in the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my infinite pleasure to welcome our many listeners throughout the world, but also to welcome to the show this week 4 exciting, highly talented and individual people who've gained such prominence in their own separate worlds in the great field of comedy. Here they have come together to give it their all of their best in just a minute. So would you please welcome Paul Merton, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, Linda Smith and Chris Neill. Beside me sits Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the beautiful, refurbished Theatre Royal in the ancient and cathedral city of Winchester. As you can hear from the warmth of their applause, they are delighted to welcome us back to do another edition here of Just a Minute. As usual, I'm going to ask our players to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. And we'll begin the show this week with Kit Hesketh-Harvey, and the subject is My Idea of a Perfect Day. Kit, 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I guess it would have to be Doris Day. I adore her with her little gingham frocks, her throaty chuckle, her inviting blue eyes, and singing, "Oh, the Deadwood stages are riding on over the plain. Whip crack away, whip crack away, whip crack." No!
It's a difficult game if you get carried away, yes. Linda, you challenge first. Yes.
It was deviation, I think. Whip crack away, wasn't it?
No, repetition.
It's a bit of both, wasn't it?
It's a bit
repetitive
of
deviation.
You have a correct challenge, Linda. You get a point for that. You take over the subject. 45 seconds are available. My idea of a perfect day, starting now.
My idea of a perfect day is certainly not that BBC advert Perfect Day, where people...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition of B.
Well, listen, Paul, yes. You've got in with the correct challenge, and you have 40 seconds now. My idea of a perfect day, starting now.
Lou Reed wrote a song called Perfect Day that the BBC used.
Linda, challenge.
Beeb, deviation from the English language as we know it.
Well, there's no such place as BBC, is there?
Absolutely not.
That's my pet name for it.
I know we know what you were meaning, but I don't know. When we were here some time ago, you did exactly the same thing, and I gave you the benefit of the doubt on that occasion.
Yes.
I'm going to give Linda the benefit of the doubt on this occasion.
Mr. Consistency.
Mr. Fairness, right. Linda, 34 seconds. My idea of a perfect day, starting now.
Lou Reed, as Paul just mentioned, wrote a song called Perfect Day, which was used by one of the television channels as an advertising slogan, with many popular artists singing a small portion of the aforementioned popular entertainment.
Kid challenge.
Too popular.
There were two populars, yes.
Can't be too popular, though, can you?
Kids, a correct challenge. Another point to you, and 19 seconds available. My idea of a perfect day, starting now.
I was terribly fond of Sir Robin Day with his wheezy chuckle, and I also liked John Day, the 16th century publisher of church music, who was so terribly good at Tallis.
Chris challenged.
Was that hesitation?
It was total collapse. No, I think it was. It was. Yes.
I don't think it was, but the audience decided it was. So, Chris, you have the benefit of the doubt. You have 9 seconds. Tell us something about my idea of a perfect day, starting now.
As a rule, I can be quite lazy, but on this perfect day, I would get up very early, go out the house, go to my local ass's milk factory, bring a couple of gallons back.
Where do you live with an ass's milk factory? Yeah, on the doorstep.
South East London.
So, whoever speaking when the whistle goes in this... Far more like to find them in Winchester, I'd have thought, actually. There we are. Gets an extra point. On this occasion, it was Chris Neill, and he's now in the lead, equal with Linda Smith at the end of the first round. They're both 1 point ahead of Kit Hesketh-Harvey and Paul Merton. It's terribly exciting, isn't it? Linda, will you take the next round? The subject is faith, hope and charity. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
Faith, Hope and Charity sounds like a particularly lying name for a firm of solicitors. But actually, Faith, Hope and Charity are the spiritual essentials with which...
Kit challenge.
Sorry, it was collapse. Hesitation.
Yes.
Yeah.
We call it hesitation, right. 47 seconds. Faith, Hope and Charity with you, Kit, starting now.
I think it was St. Paul who said, "And now abideth three things." He said they were faith, hope and charity. In fact, they're British winter time. People who ring you up when you're just getting into the bath and ask you which gas company you are with. And Nicholas Parsons. I can't say that any of these requires...
Well, it sort of fell apart.
Yes, it did. Not surprising, putting me in with St. Paul and the gas company and everything else. But 31 seconds. Faith, Hope and Charity with you, Chris, starting now.
Faith, Hope and Charity are three gorgeous sisters who live in Nuneaton. They're still all at school, actually. One is 12, one's 13, and one... oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Linda. 111,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm a fool.
Only to yourself.
Now I think I'm doing quite a few people here, actually.
22 seconds available for you, Linda, on Faith, Hope and Charity, starting now.
Faith, Hope and Charity are names quite popular with middle-class people.
Kit Challenge.
Is it popular again? Does it go from one to the next?
Yes, you said about popular before.
Does it count?
I think
Yes,
it does. I think
yes.
it leaps. It's
Oh,
a
it carries on.
vicious rule.
It's like a rollover.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no.
Yeah.
You can't use the same words in the same round again.
Well.
So, well listened, Kit. 18 seconds. Faith, Hope and Charity, starting now.
I was gibbering with delight when they told me that this edition was going to come from the beautiful cathedral city of Westminster. I went to Waterloo and said, how do... Oops, Westminster.
How could I be so stupid?
I think you lost quite a few friends. One simple remark, but Chris, you challenge first, yes.
A deviation.
Of course, perhaps you were told it was originally going to be in Westminster Abbey, yes.
And then they shifted to Winchester, and that's such a
in-
joy to be here
right.
instead.
So deviation as well as hesitation. Right. 10 seconds. Faith, Hope and Charity with you, Chris Neill, starting now.
Faith is particularly skilled at botany, whereas Hope is very good at home economics. Charity, on the other hand, has a gift for languages. German, French, Italian, Russian...
So, Chris Neill was again speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so, and has increased his lead at the end of that round over Linda Smith and Hesketh-Harvey. And Chris, it's also your turn to begin, and the subject is furry dice.
Furry dice? I'll talk about it if you like.
Is that furry dice, then? It's very strangely spelt on my card, if it is. It's, you pronounce it furry, is that right?
I do as a rule, yes.
Yes, furry is spelled differently to that, anyway.
No, it's not.
Isn't it?
It's spelled F-U-R-R-Y. That's what you've got in front of you.
Is it?
How do you spell it?
Well, I suppose it goes back to my childhood. We used to talk about furry dice. And we used to have some very furry dice we used to play with.
And how was that spelled?
Well, I was too young to know how it was spelled. So, Chris...
Aren't they the super furry animals?
It's your turn to begin, and the subject is furry dice. And there are 60 seconds, as usual, starting now.
Furry dice. I know people have them in their cars for good luck. I don't really understand this. It's a bizarre concept to me. What, I haven't passed my driving test. I can't tell the difference between the clutch and the glove compartment. I know what. I'll get 2 furry dice. That'll give me... Ooh.
Right, so Paul, you challenge first. What was the challenge?
Hesitation.
Yes, right. 36 seconds, furry dice with you, Paul, starting now.
I've got some furry dice at home. One of them's burnt. I call it the furry with the singe on top. And it's amazing, you know, because it's one of the most extraordinary objects I've got in my house. I love to drive a Ford Cortina with these furry, if you prefer that pronunciation, dice hanging down from the windscreen. They were a symbol in the 70s, weren't they? It was a cheap way of saying I don't know who I am or what I'm doing, but I'm stupid enough to think this is an attractive thing to put in my car. And lots of people did that at a time. You remember Lord Helsham? He used to drive all the way round.
Get your challenge.
He was Helsham, not Helmsham, wasn't he?
Which Lord are you talking about?
So it's a different one, I'm sorry.
Not Lord Helsham, no, he was much more famous.
So I think you've gone out of that one, actually.
I think I did, didn't you?
Yes. Very clever. I'm sure it's wrong, but you very cleverly got out of it, Paul. So I give you the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, and 5 seconds on furry or furry dice starting now.
The great thing to remember about these...
Kit challenges.
Rememberer.
Yeah, that time, I think your deviation from English as we understand
Did
it.
I say rememberer?
Yes, you did.
Did I?
Yes, you did. It's
Are you
amazing.
sure?
Absolutely.
Play back the tape.
Same as you said Hellisham before. Right, so Kit, I'm with you on this one. 3 seconds. Furry dice starting now.
I had to go and castrate a leopard in order to get one of these things.
Full challenge. Yes,
Deviation.
What?
You don't have to castrate a leopard to get furry dice. Halford sell them.
I was
People
living
all
a
over the
long
world.
way away from the nearest house.
Listen,
all over
if,
the world are
if we
listening to
are
this
going to
program.
go on your flights of fantasy and not be challenged...
You mean people in China are going to think, oh, I want some furry dice, they go castrate a leopard?
They may think that, but the point is, if they will go with your flights of fantasy, where you go off with fictitious names, we can go off and imagine that Kit Hesketh-Harvey does in his pipe.
You can't even say it, that's how rubbish it is.
It's the image of him catching a tiger and castrating it.
Leopard.
A leopard, was it? I don't know.
Don't drag the tigers into this, the dice won't match.
Kit, you had the benefit of the doubt on this one with your leopards and the castration. 1 second on Furry dice, starting now.
A surrealist masterpiece.
Right. So, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, speaking as a whistle, we gained that extra point. He has taken the lead over Chris Neill, just 1 point ahead. Then Paul Merton and Linda Smith equal in third place. And Paul, your turn to begin, and the subject now is off the rails. Something which you never do in this game, but talk on the subject if you can, starting now.
I think going off the rails is quite a good philosophy in life. After all, what's the alternative? Staying on the rails, knowing where you're going to end up in some tired old depot at the end of your life. This track leads to this place. I will end up here. It seems terrible.
Kit's challenge.
Lots of end-ups.
No, only one, but it was correct.
Only one, but it's not repetition.
You repeated
Thank you,
it
Nicholas.
once.
You're quite
You
right there.
repeated
Marvellous
end
chairman.
once.
Best chairman we've ever had on this show.
He repeated it once, as far as I know. 45 seconds, correct challenge. Anyway, off the rails with you, Kit, starting now.
The people who strike me as genuinely off the rails are train spotters, particularly as nowadays the vehicles in question look like mobile Tetra Paks. It's like spotting Nissan Micros. What on earth is the point? Life is too short, people. Go out and live somewhat.
Chris Neill challenge.
Hesitation.
There was a hesitation, Chris. The subject is off the rails, starting now.
Very recently, I had a lovely long weekend in Paris, was staying in a very nice hotel, and I noticed that the new fashion in Paris is to... Oh, God.
Right, Linda, you had a correct challenge. 23 seconds, off the rails, starting now.
Off the rails does sound a very exciting thing to be. Young men who are off the rails are always the devil-may-care, James Dean type, the kind of lads who, surly and strange, hang about on the back of dodgems, attracting the local girls as they come into town with the fun fair. And what a lot of pleasure that aforementioned entertainment is.
Chris challenge.
I just want to say I agree with her.
What I do on these occasions, Chris, is I give a bonus point because everybody enjoyed the interruption, but it wasn't exactly a challenge. So as Linda was interrupted, she gets a point. And Linda, 2 seconds on off the rails, starting now.
Off the rails would clearly describe both
And the subject is my telephone bill. Tell us something about my telephone bill, starting now.
First thing that must be said is it's huge. Having nothing to do on a daily basis, I'm always on the phone, but also it means that when the little letter comes through from British Telecom, I get great delight going through, reminding myself who I've had contact with over the last 3 months. I'm very precise about this, and there was one number which began 089, ditto, second letter number thing, and,
I'm sorry, he did eventually.
I know he did.
Was that too cruel?
It is a bit cruel.
No, it's not, no, I'm very happy.
I mean, you struggled out of it so well and then ummed.
No.
Oh, dear. So, Kit, 36 seconds, my telephone bill starting now.
I was contacted by British Telecom to say that your bill is on an industrial scale. This is because my children sit there contacting porn sites on the internet constantly, day and night. They said, do you want to pay by internet? What a very good idea, I thought.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of internet.
Yes, that is right, yes. Paul, you got in with 24 seconds. My telephone bill starting now.
Many years ago, when I was looking for somewhere to live, I went to this place in Streatham, and this man was trying to convince me that living in his house would be cheap. He said, look, here's my telephone bill. And I thought...
Chris, challenge.
I'm sorry, actually, I didn't mean to challenge. I really didn't mean to challenge, actually. What? I've got no challenge. But I feel terrible because I know Paul was about to say something funny, I'm sure. And
Paul, you were interrupted. 13 seconds. My telephone bill starting now.
That only makes sense if I phone the same people as you do for the similar amount of time. He looked at me for a moment, was puzzled by this, and then he went away. Well, in fact, I killed him. And the police never found out. I used an alibi, my telephone bill.
So Paul Merton speaking as the whistle went, and now it's an interesting situation. He's now equal in the lead with Linda Smith and Kit Hesketh-Harvey. They're all three together there, with only Chris Neill following 2 points behind. And
Thanks.
he was in the lead a minute ago. He'll probably be back in the lead again.
Swings and roundabouts, I can cope.
Paul,
We're having a whip round later. We're having a whip round later to send Chris to Disneyland.
No. You're here for your contribution. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
right,
that's one way
Paul.
of putting it.
It's your turn to begin. The subject is comics. Tell us something about comics, starting now.
I was an avid reader of comics when I was younger. Saturday morning they would come through the letterbox delivered with the newspaper. My favourite comic at the time was one called Rover that was rather different from your usual comic because it was mainly words rather than pictures. So you would read these stories about some guy who flew planes in World War II, or perhaps an individual who played in a football team, and you could get involved. You could create the images in your head rather than just look at some cartoonist work. They don't do that publication.
Linda, challenge.
That's a book.
It's a clever challenge, Linda, but I mean, the Rover, I read the Rover as well, and the Modern Boy. They did have serious stories.
The Modern Boy?
Yes, but you must remember, in Nicholas's childhood, the Modern Boy looked like Isambard Kingdom Brunel.
I think you're all terribly unkind. There was a very popular magazine called The Modern Boy.
It still sells well.
And just to prove my point, it had stories by W.E. Johns about Biggles and Co. You've heard of Biggles and Algy and Ginger?
No, not Ginger.
No.
And I've not heard of Alty either. What did he do?
Well, those Biggles books, he used to serialise them in The Modern Boy, W.E. Johns.
No, oh, right.
About Biggles.
Ginger,
Biggles were, yes. And there was the other ones.
Sporty.
Yeah. And there was the other ones about Captain Justice. Wonderful serial that was. And it's Professor Flagnasel.
Yes.
They were wonderful. I will get letters about this, I hope, to prove I was right. It was a wonderful, wonderful repetition. I read. So, Linda, your challenge was incorrect. Those stories did appear in the Rover and other similar ones. Do we read Hotspur as well?
No, I didn't know.
No, it was very good. Right. Rover was good. 31 seconds comics with you, Paul, starting now.
It's a colloquial term, a shorthand for comedians as well. I suppose when I was about 8 years old, I first got fascinated by those practitioners of the comic arts. I would watch such shows as Sunday Night at London Palladium, and I couldn't give a fig for the acrobats or the singers. Dancers left me cold, but as soon as somebody came on proclaiming themselves to be a funny individual, I was hooked. I loved it, and I think that's the reason why I am what I am today, which is repeating the word "am" 4 times.
And Linda, you challenge first. Am.
Yes. 5
seconds. Comics starting now.
Comics. I always used to love Huckleberry.
Chris, you challenge.
Sort of a deviation.
Yes, we call that hesitation.
Oh, is that hesitation? Right, okay.
It's all right. And Chris, you have 2 seconds. Comics starting now.
The Modern Boy is my current favourite read.
Oh, I might revive an interest and they'll bring it back. Who knows? Chris Neill, you were speaking as the whistle went, and your Modern Boy took you up there.
It certainly does.
Yes. You are equal now in 3rd place with Kit Hesketh-Harvey. You're only 1 point behind Linda, 2 points behind Paul. It's a very even contest, if it is a contest. Well, no, the points are there, but I mean, it's the fun, isn't it? Kit, it's your turn to begin. The subject is Superstitions. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
There's a very good one in this lovely city of Winchester. There is Saint Swithin, whose remains were removed from the cloister to the high altar, and in doing so precipitated 40 days of rain, whether it was methane gas engendering global warming.
I think it was methane gas.
Yes.
They're a great band.
It's also a very nasty medical complaint. If you've got that, you've got to go and see a doctor or open a window.
Absolutely. Right, you got in with the correct challenge.
Thank you very much.
Chris. You don't thank me, it's legitimate. Superstitions is the subject, and there are 46 seconds starting now.
I am the most superstitious individual I know. I won't even crawl through a woman's legs if her tights have got a ladder in them.
Kit! You challenged.
So there was an arm in the middle of that, but it just got engulfed in the great gales of everything.
I think he was entitled to one.
I think, yes, an arm is the least of our problems in this game. Yes,
so spontaneous, I think it was more than he ever expected. So I think in view of the image that you created there, and the picture on your face and all the rest of the team, you're entitled to keep going. Further through this lady's legs if you want to. And 37 seconds, superstitions starting now.
Once I came out the other side, I did find myself in Kabul, and because I am superstitious,
Full challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, that was definitely hesitation. Paul, you have superstitions, 31 seconds starting now.
One of the superstitions you get in the theatre is apparently unlucky to whistle backstage. There's a good reason for this, apparently.
Kit, your challenge?
So two apparently.
Two apparently, yes, correct. 25 seconds, superstitions starting now.
Cabbies believe in St. Fiacca, who is apparently...
Full challenge.
Can you say that on Radio 4?
I was going to add, it's what the cabbies say when you ask them to take you south of the river, but there is a St. Fiacca, apparently.
Yes,
apparently.
It is. It's a Spanish phrase. And you did hesitate. 23 seconds, Paul. Superstitions starting now.
To interfere with a goat in the middle of Piccadilly Circus on a moonlit night has always been considered bad luck in theatrical circles. Ralph Richardson...
Kit challenge.
Repetition of theatrical.
Theatre,
yes.
I said before.
Oh, the
Whistle in the theatre, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. 15 seconds, Paul. Superstition starting now.
I am a very superstitious man. Perhaps my greatest fear, and I don't hesitate in saying this or repeat myself, it's this. I do not like, I never will, in fact, I can't stand, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. I do not like...
Chris challenge.
Are there lots of eyes?
And likes as well.
And likes, yes.
Right. So, Chris, you've cleverly got in with 1 second to go. And on the subject of superstitions, starting now.
Superstitions are the way.
So, Chris, returning to our place of former triumph, you're now succeeding even better. And you're now in second place, 1 point behind Paul Merton. We're moving into the final round. And Linda, it's your turn to begin. The subject is junk mail, starting now.
Junk mail? I don't think there's any such thing as junk mail. Only unlicensed cab firms you haven't met yet. I love to think of them all as friends, waiting for me. The pizza delivery companies and the...
Chris challenge, yes.
Hesitation per pizza.
Yes, it was a sort of stumble which we call hesitation.
I have a speech impediment, but don't let it worry you.
Okay.
Chris, that is a correct challenge because we interpret that as hesitation because she stumbled. 44 seconds available. Tell us something about junk mail starting now.
I cancelled my subscription to the Modern Boy some time ago. And so when it arrives through the post now, to me, it is junk mail. But more commonly, I think of junk mail as maybe the sort of common one...
Paul, you challenge.
Well, a bit of a hesitation.
Yes, it was. 31 seconds. Junk mail with you, Paul, starting now.
Ironmonger's Weekly is perhaps one of the finest magazines to come out of Shropshire. There aren't many people today who subscribe to it, but I am happy to say.
Kit challenge.
Hesitation.
I call that hesitation, yes. 22 seconds, Kit. Junk mail starting now.
Up the Yangtze River from Shanghai go the junks with their mail, and because they put the con into Signia, they take the rule that you should never have a second delivery. You're not allowed 2 babies in China, they say. It is a mysterious and awesome sight as they fly.
Chris challenge.
This isn't really a challenge, it's a sort of question. Does it matter if it doesn't make any sense?
Oh, Chris, don't start pulling on that thread. The whole show will unravel.
So what is your challenge?
Well, no,
I was being mystic
deviation
and
from something.
English as we understand it?
Not really.
I was trying to help you
I
there.
understood the words. It was just the order they were putting on.
I think the words, they still made some sort of sense, and he didn't hesitate to repeat himself or actually deviate, did he? Kit is still with you, and you have 7 seconds on junk mail starting now.
Carrying their junk mail, saying, "Are words failing you? Do you no longer seem to make any friends since your friends?"
Paul challenged just before the whistle.
Well, there was a hesitation there.
There was a hesitation. Yeah. Paul, you have half a second on junk mail starting now.
Junk mail!
Which one are you doing now? Which one? So, no more time to play just a minute, and I will give you the final situation there. Linda Smith, who's triumphed before in the past, did extremely well, as always, and came just in 4th place. Only 2 points behind Kit Hesketh-Harvey, who has also triumphed magnificently before. Chris Neill, who's only played the game once before, did amazingly well, looked as if he was going to win. He pipped to the post by Paul Merton, just 2 points ahead. So, Paul, you're the winner this week. It only remains me to say thank you to our 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Kit Hesketh-Harvey, Linda Smith and Chris Neill. And I also thank Janet Staplehurst, who's helped me keep the score, and she's blown that whistle very elegantly and beautifully. We are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game, and also we are grateful to our producer, Claire Jones. And we are very grateful to our audience here in the Theatre Royal in Winchester for cheering us on our way so magnificently and being such a warm and lovely audience. And highly charged in every sense of the word. From our audience, from our panel, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, thank you. Tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute. Goodbye.
And at the same time next week, Just a Minute will be coming from Harrogate when Graham Norton, Jenny Eclair, Tim Rice and Tony Hawkes will be battling it out for Just a Minute supremacy.
Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my infinite pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country but throughout the world, and to welcome to the show this week 4 exciting and regular players of the game. We welcome back with great pleasure that outrageous leprechaun of comedy, Graham Norton. We also welcome that outrageous mistress of comedy, Jenny Eclair. And we also welcome back with great pleasure that master of the lyric phrase who's written more musicals than any of us have had hot dinners. That is Tim Rice. And we welcome back another master of improvised comedy. That is Tony Hawkes. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? And as usual, I am going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. And beside me sits Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score. She'll blow a whistle when that 60 seconds are finally elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Harrogate Theatre in the delightful spa town of Harrogate in the beautiful county of Yorkshire. And we have a warm, passionate Yorkshire audience in front of us, ready to cheer us on our way as we start the show this week with Tony Hawkes. Tony, the subject is how to complain in a restaurant. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
I don't think we British have ever been that good at complaining in restaurants. The waiter will bring our food, it may...
And Jenny Eclair, you challenged.
I was so wrong. But we are quite good at complaining in restaurants. I'm fantastic at complaining in restaurants.
Yes, that's why I never go to dinner with you.
Jenny, it was a pretty sharp challenge.
It was a poor challenge. I'd like to apologise to Tony.
No. You pressed your buzzer and therefore you've been chopped. But Tony, it was not a correct challenge, so you gain a point for that. You keep the subject. You still have how to complain in a restaurant, and there are 53 seconds available starting now.
As Nicholas rightly said in the short interlude between the speaking that was going on here, Jenny Eclair does complain. But, as I said before, the...
Graham challenge.
Psychic challenge, but I'm sensing a repetition.
I was going to phrase it in another way.
So what is your challenge within the rules?
Repetition of before. Because
Yes.
Nicholas said before and you said before.
No. As Nicholas said in that exciting interlude between the round, I didn't say before.
He didn't say before when he was speaking in the round. Tony, another incorrect challenge. So another point to you. And 44 seconds. How to complain in a restaurant starting now.
Here are some important tips you should remember when you are going to complain in a restaurant. 1, make sure you are fully clothed. Nudity just leads to an argument with the staff.
Tim, your buzzer went.
I thought I may be very nitpicking here. I thought there was a little bit of a stumbling over...
No. Over keen, I think, Tim, but no. Gosh, you've never got so many points for wrong challenges before. So, Tony, another point to you. How to complain in a restaurant starting now.
Generally speaking, it's not a good idea to complain about your...
Tim Rice.
Repeat of speaking.
Yes?
To speaking.
Yes,
That's
I
right.
think I did.
That is a correct challenge, Tim.
Or did I?
And you have 29 seconds.
Anyway, I've had enough. Got to make it fair. I'll have won after the first
Tim,
round.
a point to you. And the subject, how to complain in a restaurant starting now.
First thing you should do is grab the maitre d' by the throat and shove his head into the lobster aquarium, following up that with a quick knee in the ghoulies for the waiter. This is the only way...
Tony's pressed his buzzer. Yes, Tony?
I think the first thing you should do is have your starter.
Yeah, but Tony, perhaps to you should have your starter first. But he could have complained...
Well, certainly before sticking the waiter's head in the lobster thing.
Well, he might have complained about the fact he didn't like the venue. He might have complained the fact that the waiter was rude. We haven't established why. So if he wants to go in and complain right away, we cannot say that he was not justified within the rules of just a minute. So, Tim, you have the benefit of the doubt. We might redress the balance later. 19 seconds still available. How to complain in a restaurant starting now.
There is another way to complain, and that is subtly, to win them over with your charm, wit, and gay repartee. Caress the waiter's thighs gently with your...
Graham Norton, you challenge.
I've worked in a restaurant for many years. And right now, I'm running towards the kitchen screaming.
You've never
that man just harassed me in a horrible way.
You've never had your thighs caressed in a restaurant?
But you know, I did once.
Was it before or after the starter?
It was while I was taking their order.
Was it a very dark restaurant?
Oh!
I do... Oh! It was, but I still recognised you.
Oh, the edge comes out when they're provoked, doesn't it? Graham, you had a correct challenge, and you have the subject of how to complain in a restaurant. 11 seconds starting now.
Working in a restaurant, I learned you should never complain in a restaurant. It will lead to something disgusting happening to you.
Jenny, you've challenged, yes?
Well, I thought he said restaurant twice, which he did,
did.
but it's in the title,
It's
isn't
in
it?
the
I just
title.
wanted to be
And
heard.
Oh, Jenny.
No, you can repeat the phrase or even words in the phrase. And so it was incorrect challenge. Graham, another point to you, 7 seconds available. How to complain in a restaurant starting now.
Waiter, where's my food? Is it on your table? No, then I presume it's in the kitchen. Shut up. It'll be here when it's ready. I don't understand people who complain.
Whoever is speaking in this game, when the whistle goes, gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Graham Norton, so he's now equal in the lead with Tony Hawks, and then it's Tim Rice and Jenny Eclair. And Jenny, your turn to begin. The subject, manicure. Tell us something about manicure in just a minute, starting now.
I'm so glad you reminded me. It's time I went. I love the ritual of a manicure. Taking your clothes off, slipping the feet into the stirrups. I got confused again. That's smear test. Isn't it? No, it is detail is the essence.
I'm sorry.
What?
Tim, yes.
I would like to withdraw my challenge. I want to know what happens next.
Well, you won a correct challenge.
Okay.
So you have manicure. You have 50 seconds starting now.
Manicures are extremely important. They give a little elegance to your extremities, and every single end of your body that could stick out and cause problems in public should be...
Tony, challenge. Tony, you challenge first.
Well, there are certain ends of my body I don't want manicured.
You may not want the manicure.
I think you've echoed the sentiments of all of us, Tony. And this is the problem of keeping going in just a minute, isn't it? And correct challenge, another point, 39 seconds. Manicure with you, Tony, starting now.
2 weeks ago, I came to Harrogate and went to the manicure parlour. And what a time I had. The service was terrific. They said, sit down, Tony. We remember you the last time you were up here. You came last, but you did better.
Jenny, you challenge.
2 lasts.
Yes,
yes.
That's right. Well, listen, Jenny. 28 seconds, you tell us something now correctly about a manicure starting now.
Detail is the essence of a well-groomed woman.
Graham's buzzed you very rapidly.
Do you know, you said detail before?
But I was buzzed before I said detail.
I can't remember that, can I? I just sat here listening to you say detail.
And you did in the other round say detail.
Did I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, Graham, correct challenge. Manicures with you starting now.
If you go to a male doctor, you get a manicure. If you go to a female doctor, that's the doctor.
That's right. Jenny, you... Say you got the subject back, Jenny. You got another point, and say you have 21 seconds to tell us something about manicure starting now.
I go to a very nice lady in Chelsea Green who wears a white coat and takes my hands in hers and talks to me about my problems. Is she a manicurist?
You challenge.
Jenny doesn't know what a manicurist is.
Yes, it is very interesting, isn't it?
It is.
But, Tony, you had a correct challenge. You have 11 seconds to tell us something about manicure starting now.
And I lay on the couch and he looked into my eyes and said, your nails are the most beautiful ones I have ever seen. I've been working in this place for some time.
Graham challenged.
Oh, sure, hesitation.
Yes, because he tried to say Harrogate.
Yes,
he knew he said it before.
And he couldn't say it.
Right, so he hesitated in the process, and you've got him with 2 seconds to go on manicure, Graham, starting now.
In the buff, my manicurist said, I said, yes, please.
So, Graham Norton speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point. He's now equal with Tony Hawks in the lead, followed by Tim Rice and Jenny Eclair in that order. And, Graham, it's your turn to begin. Here's a nice subject for Harrogate. It's the poshest person in Harrogate. I don't know whether you know them, but talk on that subject. 60 seconds starting now.
The poshest person in Harrogate is a woman sitting in the 3rd row, wearing a rather silky scarf and a nice necklace. No one knows her name because her voice is so refined they can't hear her.
I can't believe no one knows her name.
No, it's true. It's true.
Somebody must know her
No,
name.
it isn't audible to the human
She must
ear.
know her name.
No.
Well, hang on, let's ask her.
You see? She's speaking now and we can't hear her.
No, Tim, that logically was a correct challenge.
Absolutely.
And once before I gave the benefit of the doubt.
chaired.
I gave the benefit of the doubt against him before. He gets the benefit of the doubt on the occasion. No, I mean, somebody, she must know somebody in the world.
Let me tell you now. No. Because her mother, now deceased, she was so
Graham.
refined you couldn't hear her voice either.
Graham, which one are you talking about?
Actually, I am talking.
All right, Tim, it was a correct challenge.
I won't point her out, though.
You have
That would be common.
You have a point, and you have 50... In fact, if she hadn't used her voice, you wouldn't know. 50 seconds, Tim. The poshest person in Harrogate starting now.
The beautiful woman in the 3rd row was hitherto the poshest person in Harrogate, but this title has now been usurped because of the arrival of Nicholas Parsons in this beautiful town. Nicholas...
Graham is challenged.
I know we can't hear it enough, but repetition of Nicholas.
Yes, you're so right.
Very sweet of you to say that. We can't hear it enough. But there we are, Graham. You'll still get the point, even if you hadn't said it. And you have 40 seconds. Tell us more about the poshest person in Harrogate starting now.
She has more potpourri in her house than anyone else. Vast mountains of it tumble down her lovely staircase. She breathes in...
Jenny, yes? Jenny, you challenged.
He was breathing, but he was hesitating as he breathed.
Yes, that long breath. He was sniffing.
I could spell that.
You decided to demonstrate the fact that you were taking in this... That's right, exactly what you did. Or the potpourri. That is a pause. That's a hesitation.
No,
yes,
it's a very posh word. You can't quite hear it.
It may be a very posh noise, but it's not a posh
Lady
word.
in the third row is nodding now. She's shaking vigorously. She's trying to tell us something. What is it, Skippy? I don't...
Jenny, a correct challenge. 29 seconds available. Tell us something about the poshest person in Harrogate, starting now.
I'd much rather meet the roughest person.
And Graham challenge. No, Tony was first.
There was a hesitation.
There was a hesitation,
There
yes.
was a stumble.
So 27 seconds available. The poshest person in Harrogate, Tony, starting now.
The poshest person in Harrogate is Ian Gledthorpe, who lives in Parliament Street, above a shop. And not many people...
Graham challenge.
Above a shop? Semi-detached doesn't cut it here.
When I tell you what shop it is, you will change your challenge.
I so? No, I won't.
So, right.
Go on, tell us.
Is there a Harvey Nicks in Harrogate?
This is one of those difficult things, isn't it? Because the image above a shop makes out not to be very posh, but there might be a justification for the posh. Back to you, Tony, with another point. 20 seconds. The poshest person in Harrogate, starting now.
Because he is, in fact, related to the royal family, and nobody knows quite how he has been forgotten.
Graham challenged.
Someone must know how it
The lady in the third row.
As Tony said, probably the lady in the fourth row. Graham hoisted on his own petard. So you have a correct challenge, and you have 15 seconds. The poshest person in Harrogate, starting now.
She brings her own linen napkins to McDonald's. She is
Tony
smart.
challenged.
How does he know so much about this woman?
I'm not going to inquire into that.
Okay.
Jenny, you want to say something?
He said she twice.
It's too late now,
And it's
darling.
common saying she. She's the cat's mother.
She's the poshest woman in Harrogate.
Right.
We don't know her name.
It doesn't matter, but you know she brings her own linen to wherever she went. 13 seconds, Graham. Still with you, another point to you. The poshest person in Harrogate, starting now.
Her entire house is covered in one huge doily.
Jenny, you've challenged.
House.
You mentioned her house before.
In fairness, I did, but it is beautiful.
So, Jenny, you have a correct challenge. You have 9 seconds. Tell us something about the poshest person in Harrogate, starting now.
Her name is Marjorie Huffington Puffington Panstick Smythe. Every morning she eats an ostrich egg fried in a little truffle oil.
The amount of fiction you hear in just a minute. Jenny, you were speaking as a whistle went. You gained an extra point for that. You moved forward ahead of Tim Rice, but you're still trailing Tony Hawks and Graham Norton in that order. And, Tony, your turn to begin. The subject is sound effects. Can you tell us something about sound effects in this game, starting now?
Meow. Here's a car going round the corner, if you like. Could be a horse's hoof. Oh!
Graham challenged.
Now, these aren't words, are they?
No, it's sound effects. He was illustrating some sound effects.
Yes, but not actually using words. So that was a hesitation then, wasn't it?
Well, sound effects is on the card, so I thought I
didn't-
might be able to do them.
He didn't elongate them or drag them out. He didn't do a click-clock like that. He just did a click. No, I don't...
All right,
no.
so you're setting a precedent now, Nicholas. We can make funny noises for 60 seconds.
Only in a round called sound effects.
Tony, you took the words out of my mouth. So you have a point, you have 54 seconds. Sound effects starting now.
The British Broadcasting Corporation, very often in their comedy radio light entertainment shows, will have a sound effects person. And this young or old individual will stand clopping coconut hooves together, which don't really exist, but that nobody seems to...
Jenny, you've challenged.
Coconut hooves.
Poor love.
Yeah.
Poor love. He needed help.
I expected you in.
He hesitated.
Well, he did, because he said coconut hooves.
Yeah.
They used coconut...
That was deviation.
Amazingly,
as well.
you didn't spot that, though. I could have got away with it.
Yes. Sometimes if you carry on with
city
panache.
folk.
Yes. Yes, the coconut shells to make horses' hooves, but he didn't say it. Sound effects with you, Jenny, and 37 seconds available starting now.
My favourite sound effect is the one entitled Man Gets Head Stuck in Zip. The other good one...
And Tim...
Well, she was pausing to get huge laughter and appreciation, which she did.
Yeah.
But it was still a hesitation, I'm afraid. She stopped.
I call it timing. You call it hesitation.
It's one of those shows where you can't really, as we say in show business, ride the laugh. You have to keep going and go through the laugh. And Tim, she didn't do it on this occasion, so you have the subject. You have 31 seconds on sound effects starting now.
What the audience at home listening don't know is that there is no group of people attending this show live. Everything is faked. It's all sound effects. There is no laughter. There is no clapping.
It's only challenge.
There was a repetition of no.
There was.
There were
You
quite a few
repeated
no's.
no too often.
After I was interrupted.
No. You said no.
There were quite a few.
No. So, Tony, correct challenge. Repetition of no. 19 seconds, sound effects starting now.
Oh, God, I can't face another day. Is the sound effect of Nicholas Parsons getting up in the morning on a day when he has to look after a crew
Graham
of
Norton challenge.
Repetition of day.
Yes. You did have day before. Graham, sound effects, 10 seconds starting now.
If this theatre were on fire, I would sound like this. A huge blaze is rustling behind me. Ooh, ow, it's quite hot now. Oh, Jenny's hair's ablaze. She's running around like someone got hit a Q-tip. This is really good, isn't it?
Graham, please, quiet. Tim, you challenge.
Repetition of...
That was very clever, Tim. Very clever. What we'll do there, as I do this occasionally, I'll give you a bonus point because
Thank
the
you.
audience enjoyed the challenge. But actually, he didn't stop speaking, so we cannot be within the rules of just a minute to say that...
Sorry, the place is on fire. We got to go.
Graham, you have another point. You have 2 seconds. Sound effects starting now.
Should this programme be recorded at a busy bar, it might sound a little like that.
Well, Graham Norton speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point. He has moved forward. I must say, in this show, there's been more points scored at this particular time than has ever been scored between the four of them in just a minute. And I don't know whether you're interested. Ever.
There'll be letters.
How do I know that after...
one now.
How do I know that after 35 years? I'm going on a hunch. Right. Jenny, it's your turn to begin. The subject is the Dales. Tell us about that beautiful part of this country, starting now.
Oh, the Dales, as in Yorkshire, stunning vistas. Take a car, pack a picnic, stop somewhere they've got a view.
Graham, why have you...
She's encouraging theft. Take a car.
Graham, a clever challenge, and as the audience enjoyed it so much, we give you a bonus point for that.
But it's still mine.
No, it's still yours. It wasn't doing anything wrong within the rules of just a minute. So, Jenny, you get a point, actually, see, for being interrupted. And you keep the subject, and you have 52 seconds. The Dales starting now.
A babbling brook, a fat sheep. How fascinating. Don't get out of your automobile. It'll be raining, and you'll step in something brown and sticky.
Graham, challenge. Graham, you challenge.
Oh, surely she stopped more than hesitated.
Well, you would if you stepped in one of those, wouldn't you? So, Graham, she did stop, yes. So you have the subject, you have another point, you have the Dales starting now.
Of all the Dales, my favourite is probably Dale Winton, the charming host of Supermarket Sweep. It's a little-known fact that Radio 4...
Tim's challenge.
He's long since given up Supermarket Sweep and moved on to greater things, surely.
Do you know, his mantra, this is dull but true, his mantra is don't quit the hit.
But he has.
No, Supermarket Sweep still continues.
He's doing it, is it? Really?
Yeah, it
Gosh.
does.
Well, I apologise, I'm just not up with the intellect. You're lying.
It does.
You're lying.
It does.
It doesn't matter, he still presented Supermarket Sweep. So, Tim, an incorrect challenge. And Graham, another point to you. The Dales starting now.
Emmerdale is surely one of the Dales where they tell a simple story of country folk and a lesbian vet. I love that show, and yet...
Jenny, it was Tony found. Oh, yes, Tony, your buzzer came on first.
Yes, a repetition of show.
That's right, yes. You had the show before,
Yes,
right.
I did.
So, Tony, correct challenge. 24 seconds, the Dales starting now.
The Dales are actually the poshest family in Harrogate. And I've been to see them many times in this palatial residence that they have nowhere near a shop, interestingly enough. And what a pleasant couple they are, Mr. Dale and his wife. She makes tea. I've lost the will to live.
Jenny, your buzzer came in first and your challenge.
Only out of the kindness of my heart. He did lose the will to live.
Well, that's right. That's a hesitation.
hesitating.
Yes, he paused, hesitating.
How many seconds have I got?
You've only got 5, so you're on a good thing here. The Dales with you starting now.
Mrs. Dale's Diary. Apparently that was a Radio 4 series.
And, by the way, Jenny, it was before Radio 4. It was the Home Service series.
Oh.
Yes,
Only you'd know that.
I know. Right. And Tim Rice is in fourth place as we go into the final round, just behind Jenny Eclair, who's some points behind Graham Norton, who's 2 points only behind Tony Hawks.
Whoa.
Yes, whoa. And Graham, it's your turn to begin. The final round is filing. Tell us something about filing in just a minute, starting now.
Filing is an Irish word, meaning to dance with joy. Not many people know that, even Irish people.
And
We'll
Tim,
get letters.
challenge.
Too Irish.
There's too much Irish there, I'm afraid.
Oh, did I? Oh, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So sorry.
Mind you, some people say you couldn't have too much Irish. I don't know.
I think I've heard it said.
In the nicest possible way, I mean, as well as the Irish whiskey.
Just not enough. I don't know.
Right. Tim, you have a correct challenge. 55 seconds. Tell us something about filing, starting now.
My brother used to work in Japan, and he had a secretary who was Japanese, and he looked in the filing cabinet one day to find every letter empty except for D, and he asked...
Jenny, challenge.
I thought he couldn't have every letter empty, but then he was talking about a filing cabinet, probably with a sticker on it, with D on it.
No, he could have had every compartment empty. He couldn't have had every letter empty.
He did say every letter empty.
That's right. It doesn't make sense.
No, he deviated.
No, that's right. That's
from
right, Jenny.
sense.
No, I'm talking about filing. This is a true story.
I know.
A tragic tale. If you'd had the patience to stay with it, you would have heard the moral.
There'll be more drama in the Archers later. Calm down.
But you should have said the compartment or the filing container. You said have every letter empty. The letter can't be empty. The letter indicates the file. So Jenny's got a correct challenge.
Yeah. Cobblers.
Yeah.
45 seconds.
Or as they say in Japan, cobras.
Don't worry, Tim, you'll get us round back in
45 seconds, Jenny, on filing. Starting now.
I make sure my drawers are in pristine condition, but as for everything else, it's on a heap in my study, and when it's knee-high, I just drop a lighted match.
No, Tim challenge. Tim, you were in first.
Well, I thought Jenny kind of faded away there a bit and hesitated.
Yes, I hesitated. So you got it back. You see, there's fairness in this game.
It's a very fair game.
I felt sorry for you.
I was unreasonable last time, I think.
Yes.
Yes, I sit corrected.
After your aggression, your contrition doesn't sound so hot. Yeah. Right, 36 seconds for you, Tim, on filing, starting now.
When filing, put things in the following order. A, B, C, E, F...
challenge.
Sweet Jesus, stop it. I just... oh, no, he hesitated.
No, he didn't, but he repeated
Only because
D,
you
didn't
buzzed.
Did he read D? Oh, of course he did. Yes, he said D before.
No.
Yes, he repeated D.
No, I went...
D.
I missed D out.
But your first challenge was for hesitation, and he didn't hesitate.
If he missed D out, there was a gap.
Right. So, Tim, another point to you. 31 seconds filing, starting now.
Filing is an extremely important part of manicure. Look at my beautiful hands. Those nails are quite staggering because they have been filed by a team of experts from Argentina, Patagonia to be precise. I would like the world to swallow me up whole, but they...
Jenny's buzzer came on first. I think they all pressed there, but your little light came up here in front of me. Right. Jenny, your challenge, please.
He stopped, really.
Yes, he did, right.
And threw his hands up and crashed his head onto the desk and cried a bit.
That's right. I don't think he went as far as that. I know it's radio, but don't overplay the situation. 15 seconds filing with you, Jenny, starting now.
First of all, you've got to get a cabinet and then some sticky back labels. Then have yourself a cup of coffee. You've done enough, for heaven's sake. How dull is filing? Do you know, I think I'm about to lapse into a coma of boredom as I go on about it. I have no interest.
Even though the subject bored you, Jenny, you kept going to the whistle when gained that extra point for doing so. And now to give you the final situation, Tim Rice, who has triumphed in the past, finished just in fourth place. I know it is an awe because its contribution was so good. Jenny Eclair, who triumphed the last time she was at the Harrogate Theatre, surged forward in that last little flourish of hers and came in third place. She was a few points behind Graham Norton, who was in second place, but only 2 points ahead of him was Tony Hawk. So, Tony, we say, this week, you are the winner! So, it shows how fair it is. The last time we were in Harrogate, Tony Hawks came fourth. This time he comes first. And it remains for me to say thank you to these four exciting and delightful players of the game. Graham Norton, Jenny Eclair, Tim Rice and Tony Hawks. I thank Janet Staplehurst for helping me keep the score, for blowing her whistle so delicately. And we thank our producer Claire Jones for keeping us in order. And, of course, we are indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this delightful and amazing game. And we are also very grateful to our audience here in this lovely Harrogate Theatre in the spa town of Harrogate for cheering us on our way. We thank our audience, from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, from our panel. Goodbye. Tune in the next time we play. Just a minute. Until then, goodbye. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but from all those other countries around the world that listen to us on the World Service. And we also welcome to the show this week four exciting, talented, intrepid, and really experienced players of the game who've come together just for your joy and benefit. And in no order of seniority, let me introduce to you Wendy Richard, Sue Perkins, Ross Noble, and Tony Hawks. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me sits Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the sixth...
Can I just ask you something? Just then, you
Seniority.
said... Yes.
Thank
Are you implying...
Tony's older than me.
Are you implying that I'm older than this lot?
No.
Because I take exception to that.
No, I put you top of the bill because in showbiz seniority, I thought you were top of the bill.
Right, as long as you're not getting ages...
All right, I'll do it the other way round. But anyway, no, Wendy, because you are very experienced and very highly established, I thought it would be a nice courtesy. And also,
all right,
as a woman, I'd
thank
put you first.
Fine, lovely, thank you.
Can I just ask, why was I last?
Yeah. Why was I second?
Because you are the highly talented new kid on the block, you see.
So he gets to be young and virile, and I get to be second. But yeah, I don't, you know...
Goodness, if we're quibbling over the introduction, we'll never get through the show.
You can see that if you have four equally well-known and equally talented players of the game, there is no way that you can comfortably introduce them in sequence without somebody feeling a little bit upset. So let us get on, and somebody who doesn't get upset because she's on her own here, and that is Janet Staplehurst, who will help me keep the score and blow her whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from this beautiful Matcham Theatre, the King's Theatre in Southsea, which is part of the great city of Portsmouth. And in front of us here we have a packed Hampshire audience coming from all parts of this delightful county of Hampshire to encourage us in our antics. And Ross, the subject I've got in front of me is the best advice I've ever had. Will you talk on that subject in 60 seconds if you can, starting now?
The best advice I've ever had was from Mr. Nicholas Parsons, who'd give me a strict lecture about the best way to introduce people. It really was a magnificent piece of advice. I think...
Tony, a challenge.
No, that was a mistake, because he repeated... I thought advice was repeated, but of course
That's
it's
right,
in the
because
title.
just to explain to our listeners, you can not only repeat the whole phrase, but you can repeat any words that are in that phrase. Ross, you get a point for an incorrect challenge.
It was also a lie as well, so... Could have had that.
I rather enjoyed what you said, actually. But, Ross, there are 48 seconds still available. The best advice I ever had, starting now.
I've been given many pieces of advice. One is, if you're ever attacked by a bear, try not to look like a picnic basket. It's quite a difficult thing to do, but if you stand upright, you don't in any way resemble that wicker device for holding the tasty treats.
Sue challenge.
Slight hesitation.
There was a slight hesitation, Sue. So you have a correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. And you have the best advice I ever had. And there are 31 seconds available starting now.
The best piece of advice I ever had also came from Nicholas Parsons, which was to go to this very particular theatre, this beautiful, illustrious place, and to see Bonnie Langford, who's doing a one-night musical extravaganza interpreting all forms of dance for your visual delight. Ah, I couldn't believe it, you'll say to my family and friends. The Pixie of Pop was there in all her 4-foot glory, and we saw her pirouetting, and dance magic was available to all of us for the princely sum of, I know I repeated, dance.
There was definitely a repetition of dance.
There was indeed. So, Ross, you have a correct challenge, a point for that, and you take the subject back. The best advice I ever had. 5 seconds still, starting now.
If you're a fireman, don't go and try and rescue squirrels from trees. That's a piece of...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Ross Noble who has the most points at the end of that round, as you can imagine. In fact, he's the only one to score alongside Sue Perkins. And Sue, it's your turn to begin. The subject is pixie boots. Tell us something about pixie boots in just a minute, starting now.
Pixie boots were extremely fashionable in the mid-80s. I never subscribed to that particular moment. In fact, I have to say that pixies usually come up at around about the 5 inches mark, and therefore their tiny hooven trotters come in at about 2 centimetres. If you want to trap a pixie and then to get its boots...
Tony challenge.
A pixie is 3 foot tall.
Not the Croydonian pixie.
They're
You're
not
talking
5
like an
inches.
inner London pixie, slightly more stunted.
Well... I think it depends on who is illustrating the particular story. I mean, you could make a pixie any size you want. There's no traditional size for a pixie.
No.
Well, if it was 12 foot, it would be a giant.
And then, Ross, they would probably call it a giant and not a pixie. But if it was only 3 inches tall, it'd be called a pixie.
At what point is the pixie cut off?
All right. I think the height restriction for a pixie, if it's above 2 foot. Shall we agree on that? Above 2 foot.
We're in the EEC now. We need to have a European standard.
I don't know whether there is a cut-off point, but let's assume that within the rules of just a minute, she wasn't actually deviating. So I give her the benefit of the doubt, and I will find a way to redress it if I can later for you, Tony. 44 seconds with you still, Sue, on pixie boots starting now.
I went in search of the Brussels pixie, who weighs in at around about 3 stone and a classic to me.
Ross challenge.
Repetition of 3.
Yes.
It was me that said 3.
No, you said 3 inches, didn't you?
No, she said 5 inches, and I said they're 3 foot tall in my challenge.
Oh, right.
Fair enough.
Thank you for your honesty, Tony. Sue, you have another point. You have 38 seconds. Pixie boots starting now.
So, you want to go down to the end of the garden and rig up some elaborate netting device. Then, in the middle of the night, when the moon shines down, the wee little people of the particular goal, right? Just trying to tell how you net a pixie.
Tony, pixie boots, 30 seconds starting now.
The best piece of advice I ever had was Nicholas Parsons, who said, wear some pixie boots in...
Ross Noble challenge.
He went back in time there.
Why?
Well, because he was doing the best piece of advice.
I know, but he can still say that. He was allowing it to pixie boots.
I was just hoping you'd give me the benefit of the doubt.
Nicholas won't stop him because he mentioned his name again,
yes.
And he loves it. Yes. He loves it. That's why he will not chastise him.
Wendy, you can be very acid on occasions. And very unwarranted. Right. Tony, you have another incorrect challenge. You have another point, and you have 26 seconds on pixie boots starting now.
And I wore these pixie boots on the streets of Southsea on a Friday night, and my goodness, what...
Wendy challenged.
I think we were shuddering to a hesitation.
He might have been shuddering to it, but he didn't actually reach it, actually. So really, he has another point and 20 seconds on pixie boots starting now.
I did actually wear some pixie boots on a plane.
Ross challenged.
Was that a repetition of where?
Yes, he was wearing them before.
You're wearing them in
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Ross, correct challenge, 16 seconds, pixie boots starting now.
Pixie boots took off, but no.
Sue challenge first.
Hesitation and the use of a strange dialect.
It was a pixie dialect.
Yes.
I was talking in pixie.
Yeah.
Right. So So 14 seconds are available. Sue, another point to you. Pixie boots starting now.
I went searching for the pixie and trapped some little things.
Ross challenged.
You were searching before.
Yes, but I'm still searching.
Okay.
And if you keep buzzing me, I'm going to be searching till the end of time.
I know, but in the rules of just a minute, you can't repeat the
Did
words.
I say that Bonnie Langford is at this theatre? She'll be performing one night only.
11 seconds for you, Ross, on Pixie Boots
I hate you,
starting
Ross
now.
I very much like the pixie platforms. They're my favourite type of pixie boot. They were popular in the 70s with all those hip disco pixies that used to hang out at the magical discotheques.
Wendy's challenged.
He's starting to hesitate. Just after magical. I'm sorry.
He was starting to hesitate, but he didn't hesitate.
There was a definite hesitation, I could see.
He might have been starting it, but he didn't achieve it. So...
He did. It was just after magical.
Oh, I love your keenness,
But
Wendy.
I was
I will
shuddering.
not dissuade you from being keen like this, but I'm afraid I've got to be fair within the rules of just a minute. You have half a second left, Ross, on Pixie Boots starting now.
Many professional...
So Ross Noble, again speaking as a whistle, gained an extra point, has increased his lead. He's ahead of Sue Perkins, Tony Hawks and Wendy Richard in that order. And Wendy, it's your turn to begin. We're going to hear from you now, my love. And the subject, so apt for Portsmouth and Southsea, victory. Tell us something about victory in this game starting now.
HMS Victory is a magnificent vessel. I remember being taken there as a child by my father to walk over this great sailing ship. On one of the decks, there is a brass plaque which says, on this site...
Sue challenged.
I think she was shuddering towards a hesitation.
No, I was taking in breath.
So, Sue, a correct challenge, 45 seconds. Victory starting now.
I've never visited HMS Victory because I came from Croydon, so all I have to say about it is it's a ship and it must therefore sail on the ocean. Perhaps many famous things took place within it, and I'm sure the good people of Portsmouth are proud, nay, delighted that this particular vessel is located in their own county. I, however, have no idea what I'm talking about.
She's got no idea what she's talking about.
So what is your... Within the rules of just a minute, what is your challenge?
I think deviation.
No, she wasn't actually deviating because she could say, I don't know what I'm talking about, but as she keeps going and doesn't hesitate to repeat anything or deviate, she was still on the victory, even though she said, I don't know what I'm talking about. Because she was still on victory, but not what she was talking about. So as long as you still have the subject and don't know what you're talking about, she's keeping going, isn't she?
As you're ably demonstrating now.
So it's a difficult game on which to judge. I try to be fair, and Sue, I give you the benefit of the doubt on this occasion. 26 seconds, victory still with you, starting now.
There is a clue in the name, however, in that I imagine HMS Victory was at some point victorious in a battle, although what that particular conflict might have been...
Wendy, you challenged.
Well, she's done something.
She repeated HMS,
Wendy.
didn't she?
Yes.
The subject is victory, and she said HMS Victory, and she used HMS Victory before.
Surely a
You
repetition.
can't help her out. You're supposed to be impartial.
Yes, but I cannot understand. It's one of the most famous ships next to the Cutty Sarks we've got here, and you don't know what happened with it.
Wendy, I'm just being honest. I could have just pandered to the crowd and lied and said, I love HMS Victory. There's nothing better I like doing every weekend than going there and scrubbing down the decks and pretending that I'm in the Admiralty.
So what we do here is we give Wendy a bonus point because what she said, the audience responded with magnificence. Sue, there are 17 seconds starting now.
I'm obsessed with Portsmouth. I've only been here for 24 hours, but my goodness, I love it.
Repetition of Portsmouth.
Yes, you mentioned Portsmouth before. Right. Tony, you've got in with 14 seconds on victory starting now.
I saw a magnificent victory when Portsmouth FC beat...
Ross challenged.
Wasn't that a repetition of magnificent...
Yes, you talked about this.
I haven't spoken in this round yet.
It was a repetition of magnificent, but it was Wendy who said magnificent.
No, he said it to me in the green room backstage.
So, Tony,
and it was magnificent, I can assure you that.
An incorrect challenge, 10 seconds for you on victory starting now.
HMS Victory is a magnificent...
Ross, your light came on first.
Was that a repetition of Magnificent Victory?
It was, Ross. Come on, 8 seconds. Tell us something about Victory, starting now.
HMS Victory is a magnificent vessel. It's moored here in...
Wendy challenge.
He's hesitating.
He did hesitate, Wendy. You have a correct challenge. And you've got him with only 3 seconds to go on Victory, starting now.
Victory was the most important ship in our...
Tony challenge.
Repetition of ship.
You mentioned the ship before when you started earlier on, Wendy, I'm afraid. So Tony's got in with... You've got the audience on your side only, Wendy. That's the important thing. But Tony's got in cruelly with only half a second to go on Victory, starting now.
Manchester United...
Wait a minute. Wendy challenge. So Tony Hawk, speaking as a whistle when gaining that extra point, is now equal with Ross Noble in the lead, followed by Sue Perkins, and only 2 points behind is Wendy Richard. And Tony Hawks, your turn to begin. The subject is roots. Tell us something about roots in this game, starting now.
To root in Australian vernacular means to have sexual intercourse. So imagine the consternation when I was watching a test match over there and I said, I'm rooting for England. Geez, you've got a national team.
Ross challenge.
Well, he sort of waited for the laugh, but he did pause. There was a hesitation.
No, he did take a break. He sort of rode the laugh, but he did go through it.
Yeah, that's what I say.
I don't.
But, yeah.
Benefit of the doubt to Tony on this one, and because it was a big laugh. 45 seconds, roots starting now.
Some of you may remember that marvellous hit by Odyssey called Zipping Up My Boots, Going Back to My Roots. I used to dance around in the discotheques of South Sea to this particular...
Sue challenge.
Hesitation, as he remembered the halcyon days dancing around the discotheque. I'm sure is there one or are there more than one in South Sea? Oh, I don't know anything about South Sea. Must have been continually booed for it.
Well, if you will engage the audience in conversation about it, you're going to get some reaction, Sue. No, it wasn't a hesitation. Tony, you still have the subject. Another point, of course, Roots starting now.
I remember watching the series Roots, I believe.
Ross, challenge.
A repetition of watching. Watching the band.
Watching the cricket.
No, sorry, no. Forget it.
No, he was watching cricket. Now
He was
he's
watching
watching
cricket.
Yeah, I knew he'd said watching
Yes, he
before.
did. He's right.
Yeah.
And Ross, you have
Watching
31
a test
seconds
match.
on Roots starting now.
Right, roots, that's what I'm going to talk about now, and I'm not going to pause before I say it. My friend is always talking about putting down roots, and that's because he's a tree that can speak. I know that seems ridiculous, but all the time he's on and on.
It's a tough game. Tony, you challenge first.
Repetition of on.
On, yes, 17 seconds. Roots starting now.
Kunta Kinte was in this television programme, and he was part of the roots of Arthur Haley, who'd written a very successful book called Roots, interestingly enough, which makes it particularly pertinent to this subject, which is why I've chosen to speak about it.
Tony Hawks then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, and he has increased his lead at the end of the round ahead of Ross Noble, Sue Perkins and Wendy Richard in that order. And Ross, your turn to begin. The subject is a snake in the grass. Tell us something about that subject in this game starting now.
A snake in the grass is something that you have to be very careful about whilst dancing in the Hawaiian national dress. If you're not careful, one of those particular...
Tony challenge.
Careful, yep.
Yes, repetition of careful, I'm afraid.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
right,
true,
yes,
yep.
yes.
I
And
thought I'd
50
snipped
seconds
it
for
through.
you, Tony, on a snake in the grass starting now.
I once had a pet snake called Chris, who I used to take out to the grass of our back garden and put him in there. And he would wriggle around in that particular place, as snakes are wont to do. And spectators started to come because it was such a spectacular sight. But nobody could really believe that Christopher, as I had called him before, I abbreviated
Ross, you challenge first.
Repetition of cold.
Yes, that's right. There's 26 seconds on a snake in the grass, Ross, starting now.
A snake in the grass is what makes the National Lawn Mowing Championship so exciting. Occasionally, people will grab a large adder.
Tony challenge.
So I withdraw that. I thought he'd hesitated, but he didn't at all.
No, he didn't. He went
Sorry.
right the way through the laugh, unlike you on the other one when he challenged you. So, Ross, an incorrect challenge. Another point to you. 18 seconds available. A snake in the grass, starting now.
A snake in the grass is a cocktail which I enjoy in the many discotheques here in Southsea. It consists of a snake bite placed in...
Sue, challenge.
Hesitation, slightly?
A slight one, yes, Sue. Yes, a benefit of the doubt to you on this occasion. And 9 seconds. Tell us something about a snake in the grass, starting now.
A snake in the grass is worth 2 in the hand, and who on earth would want a reptile swimming around your palm? It can be extremely venomous, of course, and one swift prong to your face could deliver you
So Sue Perkins was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. She's 1 behind Ross Noble, and she's 3 behind Tony Hawks, and she's just ahead of Wendy Richard. And Wendy Richard, it's your turn to begin. The subject is department stores. Tell us something about department stores in just a minute, starting now.
I have worked in several department stores in between professional engagements. One department store I was at, I was sacked after the first day because I did not sell 1 item of clothing. I thought this was most unfair because if some woman put a coat on and I thought it didn't look right, I told her. So it would be removed and put back on the hanger. I mean, fair dues, you know, you want help in these sort of things. Other times, the department stores I was at, I was in the makeup department. I quite enjoyed that. And then also...
Sue, challenge.
Hesitation?
Yes, there was a hesitation there, Sue. So you've got 25 seconds to tell us something about department stores, starting now.
I once worked in the basement selling toilets in a department store, and my job was to convince people they didn't want a normal cover for their toilet seat, but rather a fancy one, perhaps with barbed wire.
Tony, challenge.
Though I think I made a mistake because she said toilet and toilet.
That's right, she did indeed, so that was an incorrect challenge. And so you've still got the subject. Sue, 16 seconds starting now.
In moments of depression, which often hit those in the retail industry, I would put a toilet seat around my head, and what... yes, I did. Yes, I did. Hello.
She's definitely repeated one of them now.
Yes.
Toilet, yes, right. 11 seconds, department stores with you, Tony, starting now.
One of the most famous department stores in the world has to be Harrods in Knightsbridge, and many American tourists will...
Tony, Wendy, challenge.
Hesitation there. You were stumbling over American.
So, Wendy, there are 4 seconds on department stores starting now.
My favourite department store is Selfridges.
Ross, challenge.
No. Sorry, I've got it.
You get more laughs from your false challenges than you do.
I'll just keep ringing. Just don't mind me.
An incorrect challenge, Wendy. Another point to you. 2 seconds, department stores, starting now.
Which I refer to as my corner shop.
So Wendy Richard was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and for others in the round, she has leapt forward. And she's still... roughly where she was before. But you're only just trailing Ross Noble, who's just behind Sue Perkins, and just ahead of her is Tony Hawks. And Tony, your turn to begin. The subject, U-turns. Can you tell us something about U-turns in this game, starting now?
It was Margaret Thatcher who famously said, "The lady's not for turning," who made her a very easy person to follow undetected, because she would never swivel...
Sue, challenge.
I thought he hesitated, but actually, maybe I misheard because the audience were laughing.
An incorrect challenge. Who was speaking? Tony. And there are 45 seconds on U-turns, starting now.
U-turns the wheel, Hawks, said the captain to me as we sailed along on the HMS Vic.
Sue, challenge.
Sorry, it's not... He's done nothing wrong. I just want to know where that accent comes from.
It came out of Tony's mouth.
That's right.
So, Tony, you have another incorrect challenge, and you have another point, and you have 39 seconds starting now.
If you were driving along a motorway and you see a superstore you'd rather like to go to, the trouble is you can't just do a U-turn and pop off on the exit you need to get there. They make you drive 17.5 miles in the wrong direction, come off and then go into the countryside somewhere, all the signs are wrong and you get completely lost. It's embarrassing. U-turns ought to be allowed in that situation. However, they're not, and I'm not going to go on about it any longer.
And Ross, challenge first.
Well, if he's not going to go on about it, he's going to hesitate.
He has hesitated. It wasn't that he was going to, he did. So Ross, the correct challenge in 11 seconds, starting now.
U-turns is often something that comes out of Bill Oddie's mouth as he affectionately refers to the seabirds that he surrounds himself with. U-turns are lovely, he'll say as he nuzzles up.
So Ross Noble speaking as the whistle gained an extra point. He's now equal to Perkins in second place behind Tony Hawks, and he's followed just a little way behind by Wendy Richard. So we're going to the last round, which is going to begin by Wendy Richard, and the subject, Wendy, is a second bite of the cherry. What a lovely subject. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
I'm not over fond of cherries, and have you seen the price of them in the shops at the moment? Goodness knows what country they bring them in from, but these cherries cost a fortune, over £8, one of those kg things, whatever that means, seeing as I've not yet joined the common market, having no interest in it whatsoever. So it's not often one does get the chance for a second bite at the cherry.
Tony challenge.
What does she mean she hasn't joined the common market?
No, she was establishing that it wasn't a case of a physical matter, it was emotionally. She was not with the common market.
Okay.
So she keeps the subject, 33 seconds, a second bite of the cherry, starting now.
Some cherries require a
Tony challenge.
This is a bit finicky, but stylish. Repetition of cherries, because the title is a second bite of the cherry.
That's right, it is. I'm torn because as it's the last round, I'd love Wendy to finish with it, but...
Go on then, I'll have the point and you hand it back.
No, I'll have a point, you do it.
All right,
so
give
never
Wendy a
happened like
point because she's demanded it, and it was a correct challenge, Tony, so you take over a second bite of the cherry, and there are 31 seconds starting now.
The beauty of the game, just a minute, is that you very often get a second bite of the cherry. If you make a mistake and one of your fellow panellists...
Sue challenge.
Slight hesitation on panellists.
A slight hesitation, yes. So, Sue, you tell us something about a second bite of the cherry with 22 seconds available starting now.
Usually a cherry is finished in one single bite, bearing in mind, of course, the average cherry is only so big, so it would take a tiny mouth.
Wendy challenge.
Cherry twice.
A cherry's on the card, my love. It's cherries that are not on the card.
Beg your pardon, Sue.
That's okay. Thanks for the point, Wendy.
Right.
Always grateful.
Right, so 15 seconds on a second bite of the cherry, Sue, starting now.
Unless, of course, it's a genetically modified cherry, which can be up to a football in size.
Ross challenge.
Sorry, no, I've done it again, haven't I?
Have you? Yeah. 12 seconds, a second bite of the cherry, Sue, starting now.
Though a small-faced man with tiny incisors might well need to peck away for an hour and a half.
Ross, you challenge.
Repetition of tiny mouth, tiny man.
A small-faced man, she said.
No, she said with a tiny mouth before.
No, she didn't. 8 seconds, a second bite of the cherry with you, Sue, starting now.
So once you've had your second bite of the cherry, where is there to go? Well, of course, the third and the fourth, but then it just gets the same taste, and I don't like cherries anyway. I prefer a banana.
So Sue Perkins was speaking then as the whistle went. Gained an extra point and a lot of other points in that round. And she made a magnificent surge forward. But let me just tell you the final situation. Wendy Richard only just finished in fourth place, and she was a little way behind Ross Noble. Sue, with that magnificent surge, did extraordinarily well, but she still finished up 3 points behind Tony Hawks. So we say, Tony, this week you are our winner. So it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine, exciting and highly committed players of the game, and in no order of beauty or talent or age, I will say, who should I put first? Well, Wendy is top of our list because she's such a lovely lady. And then comes Sue Perkins, who's such a lovely, charming girl. And then Tony Hawks, who's a real charmer, and the other right charmer over there, Ross Noble. They're so sensitive, but all 4 of them, I thank them all for their contribution and their keenness. And also I thank Janet Staplehurst for her keenness as well, and for blowing the whistle so well when the 60 seconds was up. We thank our producer, Claire Jones, for keeping us in order as best she can, and we are indebted to Ian Mester, who thought of and created this game, and we are deeply indebted to this lovely audience here in the King's Theatre in Southsea, who've cheered us on our way. From our audience, from our panel, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, goodbye till the next time we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it is my pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but throughout the world, but also to welcome to the show this week the 4 dynamic, individual, diverse personalities who've gathered together to pit their wits and their verbal ingenuity against each other to try and score points in this game of Just a Minute. And they are, in no order of seniority, Paul Merton, Graham Norton, Sheila Hancock, and Clement Freud. Please welcome all 4 of them. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviating from the subject. Beside me sits Janet Staplehurst, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the White Rock Theatre in that delightful coastal resort of Hastings. And as you can hear, we have a very quiet, subdued Hastings audience ready to cheer us on our way. To begin the show this week with Graham Norton. Tell us something about the Channel Tunnel. There are 60 seconds. Your face looks as if you'd rather not, but do your best. Just a minute, starting now.
I love the Channel Tunnel. Oh, how people mocked it when it was being built, but it's turned out to be a huge success and very popular, especially with the Eastern European branch of the Ramblers Association. They love it. Up and down embankments. Mind you, it's supposed to be this marvellous zippy train to Paris. Never when I'm on it. It's always a bit of that Connex mantra. I'm just rambling now. Oh, no, rambling's good. Oh, everything's rambling.
So, Paul, you challenged first.
There was hesitation.
There was a hesitation. Paul, you have the subject of the Channel Tunnel, and you have 31 seconds starting now.
I'm very pleased the Channel Tunnel has been built. It makes it so much easier to travel to the continent by train. Before it was there, you tended to get on these transportations that had balloons attached to them. You floated away across, or hovercraft, indeed, was another way of doing it. Ferries, there's another one. Who would have thought that one day they would look like the old-fashioned things that they are? People are looking at me like I'm talking
Freud
sense.
challenge.
Most disconcerting is somebody over there taking notes.
So what's your challenge, Clement?
Nonsense.
It is nonsense, yes.
Yes.
Clement, I agree. Deviation. You have the subject, you have the Channel Tunnel, and 10 seconds starting now.
When we built the Channel Tunnel, we thought...
Graham challenge.
Hello? When did we build the Channel Tunnel?
Now, I'm
we,
always...
the taxpayer.
You're not winning friends, Clement. I'm sorry. I think you're struggling. As I say, I always try to be fair and give the benefit of the doubt. This time, benefit of the doubt goes to you, Graham.
Why?
Yes? Because even we as a nation didn't build it. We built it in conjunction with the French. It's an Anglo-French
Where did I put
consortium
my
that made it.
pen? This is very interesting.
Right. So you have the Channel Tunnel, Graham. It's back with you. Then there are 7 seconds available, starting now.
It isn't, in fact, the Channel Tunnel, because as far as I know, there are 3. One is for trains with the people. One is for...
Graham Norton was then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point for doing so, and he's now in the lead, then Clement, then Sheila Hancock, and Sheila begins the next round. Sheila, the subject is how I could improve myself. Yes, you look askance, but try and talk on the subject in 60 seconds if you can, starting now.
I feel fairly insulted that I've been given this subject. However, I could have a facelift, I could have Botox.
And Clement challenge.
Oh, I could have.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Clement, you've got the subject. 52 seconds. How I could improve myself, starting now.
I'm afraid 52 seconds are simply not long enough for me to explain. But if you'd like me to start, I would do so with my feet. Shoes, boots, and Wellingtons are all very sub-fusk. I mean, no...
Sheila challenge.
I'm not quite sure. It was a hesitation.
Dance challenge.
It was a hesitation.
He did hesitate, yes. He was
hesitate.
struggling there with his feet. He couldn't move them forward at all. So, Sheila, I give you the benefit of the doubt. You have hesitation. You have the subject. How I could improve myself. 35 seconds starting now.
Skipping every day, maybe a swim, being nice and not envious and horrible and...
All challenge.
Did we hear the word torrible? We don't often hear it enough these days, torrible.
So what is your challenge?
A deviation from English.
All right, English
It's
as we are.
Norman. It's ancient Norman.
Is it? Well, when ancient Norman comes in, I'll ask him.
So, deviation from English as we understand it. Paul, you have How I Could Improve Myself. There are 21 seconds available starting now.
Well, it's difficult, I know, looking at me, thinking surely there's perfection on legs, but I suppose I could... No need to laugh, thank you. I could get myself an education. I haven't been properly educated. I have a couple of A-levels, 5 O's, and I think that perhaps I would have...
Graham Norton challenge.
Was there an like
There was an
hesitating
Yes, there was an
What's
in
there?
that. Yes, definitely, yes. There was an
Was there really?
When you listen to this show going out, you'll say, Nicholas was right again. There was an And...
Again?
As always. Graham, you've got in with only 3 seconds to go on How I Could Improve Myself starting now.
I've reached the age where it doesn't matter what I do to improve myself.
Graham Norton speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. They're all pretty equal at the present moment. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject is tickled pink. Tell us something about tickled pink in just a minute, starting now.
Well, it's a lovely expression, isn't it? Tickled pink. Pink is a colour that's generally associated with gaiety and having fun. I think of all the aspects of the rainbow, it's perhaps my particularly favourite shade. Pink.
Clement Freud challenge.
Doesn't appear on the rainbow.
It doesn't.
Is it not?
No. Pink is not on the rainbow. It's not one of the colours of the rainbow.
Really?
No. It's a blended colour. It doesn't appear.
It's your lack of education.
That's what it is. It's funny because I did rainbow O-level. I should know. But at our school, we only had pictures in black and white, so disadvantage.
Right. So, Clement, you have a correct challenge on tickled pink. 45 seconds starting now.
I suppose the derivation of the term comes from the fact that if you tickle someone enough, they laugh, smile, guffaw, or burst into wild laughter, as a consequence of which the colour of their physiognomy changes from a light red to an almost dark yellow or pink.
Sheila Hancock challenge.
No, that's deviation. They don't start dark red. They surely start pale and then go pink with
But
laughter.
they don't turn yellow.
No, they don't turn yellow either.
Dark yellow's not pink, is it?
No, and yellow's not pink, so you can't turn yellow when they're pink, when they were tickled pink.
Well,
so
unless
that is
you
deviation.
killed them through tickling, and then they might turn sort of dark yellow.
Yeah. Or if they
I
had...
think Clement has a very good point there, yeah.
If they
I
had
don't think it
jaundice...
has. I agree with your challenge, Sheila. 25 seconds, tickled pink, starting now.
Well, this is a little flower that quivers and is flecked with green and blue and has a black centre. And because it has this movement, it is called the tickled pink. And you'll find it in any horticultural book. People in Hastings...
Graham Norton challenge.
Now, I have to say, in Gardening and Me by Sheila O'Brien, a neighbour of my mother, it doesn't feature.
Oh, really?
No.
But pinks are carnations, and that is another word for carnation, a pink. That is a correct phrase for a carnation.
Really?
Yes. I don't know whether there's a variety called tickled pink, but it doesn't really matter. 5 seconds, tickled pink, starting now.
I'm tickled pink that Nick has let me have that point because, of course, I was talking unutterable rubbish.
Sheila Hancock speaking as a whistle when gained the extra point. She's equal in the lead with Paul Merton and Clement Freud. They've all got 6 points, and Graham Norton's only 2 points behind. It's a very fair contest. Clement, it's your turn to begin. The subject is the Sword of Damocles. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I'm really pleased to be given that subject, especially for 60 seconds. Cicero and Plato both wrote voluminously about the sword of Damocles. I think it was Dionysus, or you might pronounce his name differently.
Paul challenge.
Hesitation.
There was a hesitation, yes.
How would you pronounce his name?
Well, I would pronounce his name Tickled Pink.
Dionysius, right. 42 seconds, the sword of Damocles, starting now.
It means something hanging over you, something perhaps you fear, 3 somethings.
Clement, challenge. Clement, what is your challenge?
3 somethings.
There's an echo in here.
I didn't hear it.
2 somethings followed by an admission of a third something.
39 seconds, Clement, the sword of Damocles, starting now.
The sword of Damocles was hung over Damocles by a hair, and it was done so that if he did anything unpleasant, unjust, wrong, difficult...
Sheila, challenge.
No, that's not true. It actually, if I get the subject, then I'll tell you how he was... I
have to know...
right.
I have to know whether your challenge is correct. That is deviation.
No, it was a bloke called Damocles who said to a man called Dionysus,
yes.
You're a lucky guy, you've got everything I want. And he said, all right, well, you can be king or whatever I am for a day. And
you're right, I think you know enough about it. You've got the subject right. You can recycle all that,
Can I
you see.
recycle it?
Oh,
right.
yes, of course. You didn't do it. You did it outside the show. So, correct challenge, the sword of Damocles with you, Sheila. 26 seconds, starting now.
Well, there was this tyrant.
Clement, challenge.
I've got a different version.
Give Clement a bonus point because the audience enjoyed his interruption. Sheila gets a point because she was interrupted. She has 25 seconds. The sword of Damocles starting now.
And he was very rich and successful. And there was a poor man called Damocles who said, I really envy you, Mr. Di, because you have all these lovely things. And this bloke...
Paul challenge.
Slight hesitation there.
There was a slight hesitation, yes. So, Paul, you tell us something about the sword of Damocles, and there are 13 seconds available starting now.
Dialysis had trouble with his kidneys, so he decided that he would go and see the doctor. And this physician said to him, I can see you have difficulty passing water. He says, yay, it is so.
Sheila, challenge.
Deviation.
What?
Because you weren't talking about Damocles,
No,
you were talking about dialysis.
One of the lesser-known Greek gods. He was a good mate of his. He lived next door.
Often pronounced dialysis.
Yeah.
No, well tried, but it's wrong. Sheila, 3 seconds. The sword of Damocles starting now.
The sword of Damocles fell upon the head.
So Sheila, with points in the round, including one for speaking, as the whistle went, has moved forward, and she's now in a lead just ahead of Paul Merton and Clement Freud, and then it's Graham Norton. And it's also Graham Norton's turn to begin. Subject, Graham, is thermals.
Not? Oh, no, I'm not starting yet.
No. Tell us something about thermals, starting now.
It is a little-known fact that my mother is, in fact, a white witch. But rather than using chicken livers or tea leaves to divine the future, she scatters her thermal underwear at the foot of the bed. Should it land in a strict pile, she sees foreboding and bad things happening next day. But should it lay flat, like someone just vanished or melted out of her thermal underwear, almost as if it's a murder outline, then you should hear the cackles.
Paul has challenged you.
No, I haven't.
Well, your light came on.
My mother's a witch.
So, one of those involuntary slips, so your light came on, which means that maybe your mother is a witch because...
Is she an electrician?
So you interrupted.
See, thermal electricity. Do you see where we're going with it?
So you were interrupted, so maybe your mother is at work at this present moment. So because you're interrupted, you get a point for that, and you carry on with thermals, and you have 31 seconds starting now.
My mother has nothing to do with it.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of my mother.
Your mother, yes. Right. Paul, you have thermals, 29 seconds starting now.
Well, it's an ideal way of keeping warm in the middle of winter. What you do is you put the thermals on underneath your clothes, and then you get an extra layer of heat that's trapped between the thermals and whatever you have on top of them. I think perhaps thermals aren't as sexy as they should be. They shouldn't.
Clement Freud challenge.
Is it?
That's a hesitation,
I think
yes.
my buzzer's working.
Press your buzzer, Sheila.
Well-
Lovely red light came on in front of me when you pressed that.
Right.
13 seconds, Clement, on thermals, starting now.
When you learn to fly an aeroplane, your instructor is always on at you about thermals. Nothing to do with what you wear over your inner or outer clothing, but winds that appear...
Clement Freud spoke as a whistle when gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's just one behind our leader, Sheila Hancock, and one ahead of Paul Merton and Graham Norton in that order. And Sheila, your turn to begin, and the subject is smugglers. Tell us something about smugglers in just a minute, starting now.
When I was very young, I was absolutely fascinated by smugglers. I was evacuated to Dorset, and there was a coastland there which was full of little tunnels that went up into the cottages. And I had this fantasy that I was going to escape from the place that I was evacuated.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of evacuated.
Yes, you were
I didn't quite finish it. I went evacuate.
I know, but we knew how you were going to finish it.
I was evacuated.
Oh, you little baby.
Yes.
He doesn't
My
know
goodness,
about
he's-
evacuation because he's so young.
I'm not as regular as I was.
Paul, the correct challenge, 41 seconds. Tell us something about smugglers, starting now.
If you look back through the history of Hastings, the area is associated with smugglers, but luckily none of that goes on today, does it? And that laugh tells you that, in fact, I'm sure there is still an illicit trade and all kinds of contraband. It's one of those things that...
Clement, you challenge.
Contraband.
Contraband, yes.
Wasn't happy about that.
I know you weren't happy, so give me your challenge within the rules of just a minute.
Not a word.
You mean deviation from English as we understand it and speak it and write it?
Or not a word.
It's one of my own special words.
Yeah, but it's not one you use in connection with smugglers. So, Clement, you have 26 seconds on smugglers, starting now.
There was a huge amount of smuggling in Hastings, mainly because there was such a great amount of fishing.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of amount.
There was 2 amounts there, yes. Paul, you got back in, so you needn't have worried. 19 seconds, smugglers, starting now.
More than 500 yards from this theatre, there are caves full of Nivea cream, which have been brought over from the continent. You walk around this town now, and strangers will come out to you out of doorways and say, "Here, want to buy some face massage oil?" And you'll know exactly what they're on about. It's amazing. I haven't walked, I can tell you this much. I haven't been round.
Paul Merton with points in the round, including one for speaking as a whistle when gained... he's moved forward. He's now one ahead of our joint second, Clement Freud and Sheila Hancock, and Graham Norton brings up the rear behind them. And...
Leave it.
Paul, the subject now is the best way to win a bonus point. That is the subject. It's your turn to begin, so you start now.
The best way to win a bonus point is to flatter Nicholas. Let me show you how it works. Mr. Parsons, you are a wonderful chairman. I can't imagine how this programme would survive without you. Still, let's give it a go.
Clement Freud, challenge.
I can.
I think you're rotten, old instructor. There we are. It's all good fun.
I think you're an
and I'll show
excellent-
you how generous I am. Because you enjoyed Clement Freud's response,
Oh, you
we
get
give
a
him a
bonus.
bonus point for that. But Paul keeps the subject. The best way to win a bonus point, starting now.
Traditionally, the best way to win a bonus point in just...
Clement Freud challenge.
I can.
Very clever, Clement. You've got to have another bonus point for that one. Yes, he just established it. Right. But Paul was interrupted, so he gets a point for that.
I'd like to challenge.
Why?
Well, Clement's getting the point. Deviation. Clement's getting the points, but he's not talking. It's not his subject.
But you know I often do this, give bonus points for
You do.
for good response.
Okay.
And you keep the subject, and you have 44 seconds still.
Oh, God, have I?
The best way to win a bonus point, starting now.
The best way to win a bonus point without any doubt is to blackmail our chairman. There are many photographs floating around in the inner circles of show business, him with Congress, various animals. You'd be...
Sheila challenged.
I'm trying to save you and get a bonus point.
Well, you don't get a bonus point, you get a legitimate point.
Deviation.
Yes, it was deviation.
Deviation.
Yes, absolutely devious.
Are you denying this photographic record that exists?
Absolutely, I never posed with an animal in my life.
I wish to God you were only posing.
Sheila, it was deviation, and you've got to...
Telling me?
Give Paul another bonus point. Sheila gets a legitimate point for a correct challenge. Sheila, the subject is still the best way to win a bonus point. There are 31 seconds available starting now.
Nicholas, I saw those photos and I tore up my version because I love you so much. I didn't want it to get in the sun about you and those creatures that were talked about before. So, and I love you. You're so beautiful and you've got lovely grey hair. This is the way to get a bonus point.
Paul, you challenged.
This is crawling.
She's illustrating how to get a bonus point.
And does it work?
Yes, you got a bonus point. But you have got a point for a correct challenge, because she was...
Crawling.
Because she was deviating, because you went on about me and the animals, which wasn't correct. 13 seconds, best way to win a bonus point, Paul, starting now.
I'll never look at a seaside donkey in the same way again.
Sheila challenged.
No, I'm going to stop him. I'm going to stop him with this deviating.
He deviated because you thought he was coming up with me again on
Yes,
the donkey.
I did, yes.
Right, all right.
No, but I wasn't going to go down that route.
What were you
if
gonna
only
get?
some of us were quite so strong-minded. Those kiss-me-quick hats aren't meant to be taken literally.
This'll all be cut.
No, it won't.
No, it won't. Sheila, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say, because I gave it to Paul on the last one, I give it to you on this one. 10 seconds, the best way to win a bonus point, starting now.
I think Paul...
Hesitation.
Hesitation, Paul, you got another point, and you've got 8 seconds, the best way to win a bonus point, starting now.
Lucky boy. Was ever a sobriquet so ill-justly earned? I recognise...
Oh, thank goodness that round's over. And,
As the donkey said.
I can tell you that more points were scored in that round than have ever been scored in a single round in just a minute since we started this year 35 years ago. Clement, it's your turn to begin. The subject is ginger. Tell us something about ginger in just a minute, starting now.
Ginger is a spice that comes from the east, not that of Sussex or even Essex, Kent, Suffolk, Norfolk, Lincolnshire, Yorkshire, but the far eastern provinces, islands, settlements, and Australia is particularly famous for its crop of ginger. Go to Queensland, look where you will, dig up a bit of land, scrape a bush, shake a tree.
Graham, you challenged.
I think it was a final hesitation.
I think he was stumbling to a halt.
Yes.
I was...
And so we give you the benefit of the doubt and say it was hesitation. 29 seconds, Graham, starting on ginger, starting now.
Ginger is an odd quality in a human being because it gives everyone else carte blanche to insult them. Look at little Ginger Spice, so pretty and lovely and thin, and yet because she was ginger, we could call her a fat old dog. I don't understand it myself. Ginger people, rise up. Take to the streets. Mind you, put some sunscreen on because you might burn horribly.
So Graham Norton, with a great deal of style there, gained points, including one for speaking the whistle when he's moved forward. He's still in fourth place, but he has moved forward. And but last time he played, he won. But he's in fourth. But that's the way this game glows. It glows and goes. And Graham is glowing, and it's his turn to begin. The subject, Graham, is pretentiousness. can you tell us something about pretentiousness in just a minute, starting now?
I cannot think, or pense, comme on dit en français, why I've been given this subject at all. As I languished on my Connex train coming down here, I had plenty of time to read my Proust in the original French aloud, because it really sounds better like that. Even Michael...
Sheila challenged, right?
Well, he is hesitating now.
No, he isn't. He's going a bit slow, but he's not hesitating.
I think it was mentioning a Connex train starting.
No, he was dragging it out a bit, Sheila, but he didn't actually hesitate. But
I think
if
when you hear the programme, Nick, you'll see that he did.
I think if he went any slower, you might accuse him of that. But he didn't actually hesitate
Go on, I was
between his
enjoying
words.
it anyway.
But almost between some of the vowels, but not the words. Right. We're in the last round, by the way, so keep it going, Graham, and you might finish up with the others. Pretentiousness and... 35 seconds starting now.
Pretentiousness, I think, is most made physical in the form of potpourri. What the hell is that? Just so horrible smells can sound like... No, smells can't sound like anything.
Sheila, you challenged.
Well, that was a hesitation.
That was a hesitation. Yes, Sheila.
It's a shame. It was so good.
Sheila, you've got in with 18 seconds. Unpretentiousness starting now.
The people in the theatre are often very pretentious about people who work.
Yes, Paul.
Repetition of people.
Yes, too many people, I'm afraid. So Paul has got in with 14 seconds on pretentiousness starting now.
I was travelling down to Hastings a few months ago on the Connex train that Graham mentioned, and some schoolboys recognised me, and just for the hell of it, I pretended to be French. This...
Clement Freud challenge.
Who were you?
All right, Clement, you're getting all your points and bonus points this time, so another one for that. The audience enjoyed it very much. Paul was interrupted, so he gets the point for that, and he has 2 more seconds on pretentiousness starting now.
When I was in Monte Carlo, I said to...
So, as I indicated during that round, it will probably be the last, and I've discovered we have no more time to play just a minute, isn't there? Anyway, I'll give you the final situation. Graham Norton giving tremendous value, as always. We couldn't do without him. And he did finish just in 4th place. A little way behind Clement Freud, who was 1 point behind Sheila Hancock, but 5 points ahead of Sheila was Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are our winner this week. So it only remains me to say thank you to our 4 exciting players of the game, which is Paul Merton, Graham Norton, Sheila Hancock, and Clement Freud. I'm very grateful to Janet Staplehurst, who kept the score so well for me, and blew her whistle so magnificently. Also, our producer, Claire Jones. And we are deeply indebted to Ian Mester, who created this game, and we're particularly thankful to this lovely audience here in the White Rock Theatre in Hastings, who've cheered us on our way with such aplomb. Thank you. So from our lovely audience, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, and our panel, thank you for tuning in. Be with us the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute. Until then, goodbye!
And that was the last programme in this series of Just a Minute, but Nicholas Parsons and the gang will be back later in the year.